Okay, Scotty, are you ready? I am talking right now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me talking? A little bit.
Can you hear me talking?
Now, see, they can hear you, but okay, can you? Oh, now, okay, great.
Dueling microphones.
Yes. Da 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 da. Ooh. Okay. Okay. All those that have tape recorders, you can use, tape recorders, it shows my age. You can use your recorders, so now would be the time to press the record button. Ageless. Okay. Have to get the...
Okay, so how many people here is this their first workshop? 2, 3. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Pammy, P-A-M capital E. E stands for my expanded self. Just a little reminder for myself. This is Melissa Higginbotham. We're both from the Cathara team. I co-manage the team with Marion Calloway, speaker 3. And we are so excited to bring this presentation to you. For those of you who know me, typically I do the technical modules, but this is going to be fun. This is going to be experiential. So you might see some slides up there with some writing that you might wonder what it is and you can't read it. It's okay. It's not meant for you to read it. It's meant for you to feel it. Okay, so this is going to be a workshop based on encryption and being able to feel the frequencies. Okay, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think you're doing real well, Pammy. Okay. I'm like you said, Melissa Higginbotham, and I go by Mel because there is another Melissa. But Mel, we had decided a long time ago to name ourselves with an expanded part of ourselves, so that we would know ourselves as that expanded self. Because when you know yourself as expanded self, that's all about knowing yourself as consciousness. And so we welcome you here today, and welcoming you into the next step of stepping into the consciousness of Ascension.
So just because Mel and I are the ones up here presenting this presentation, just want to give credit to the computer support team of the Cathara team, because you'll see some fantastic images here that were created. And of course, the information always starts with Speaker 1 and the Beloveds bringing the information to us. And then we work with it, we step it down so that we can share it with you. Okay, so this is stepping into the consciousness of Ascension. Just take a minute and look at that code and just breathe in the frequencies if you so choose. Anything that we suggest is only a suggestion. Obviously, if you choose not to, that's fine. And just start to think about clearing your mind and just allowing yourself to experience the frequencies that you're going to feel, the images that you're going to see, because they are all going to talk to you on some level. Okay? The all-important copyright. Okay. So this workshop is from the MCEO Freedom Teaching Series, presented by the Adashi MCEO, LLC, in association with the Ezra Press, MCEO, Incorporated. The copyright is from 1999 to 2011 by A&A Dean, and all rights are reserved. And the reason it's from 1999 to 2011 is because really and truly that's when the Freedom Teachings began being dispensed on a public level as workshops. We also have a disclaimer here, and I'm going to read this disclaimer. The materials presented in this presentation reflect the dynamics of the emerging MCEO materials, that's Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order materials, and the reality that the detailed understanding of major topics is under continuous development. How many people would agree with that fact? Exactly. And fast sometimes. Therefore, the contents and level of detail herein are as advanced as possible up to the date of the publication of the source materials. Okay? So we're going to begin with dial-up. For those of you who don't know what dial-up is, Dial-up is basically we use sound tones and we have images to go with it that allow you to reach towards your eternal self. You're reaching your hand out and saying, yes, I would love to co-create with you, and they reach back. Okay? So this is called the Christar vehicle, and what we do is Rasha, Ira, Christar now. We say it 3 times. One time we inhale into what's called the Iyumbi, which is just below the navel here, by the 2nd chakra. So we go Rasha, Ira, Christar now. You're inhaling, you hold your breath. You bring it up to the Azare, Rasha, Ira, Christar now. Bring it up to the pineal gland, Rasha, Ira, Christar now. And you expand into that image. Just pretend that you're that person there. Okay? Is everybody ready to do that? Okay. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Rasha, Ira, Christar now. Rasha, Ira, Christar now. Rasha, Ira, Christar now. So now just take a moment and feel the difference. Feel the frequencies of you as that Christar vehicle. Just feel the frequencies. Feel the flames and the Merkaba, everything activating. You are in your eternal vehicle. Feels pretty good, doesn't it? And now we'll move on. And this is called the Song of Lyra. Well, when the Song of Lyra comes, I'm going to put the microphone out to the audience so we can hear everybody's voices, not just mine. Okay? So we begin this by stating this as part of the invocation of the Maharata. So on 3, we'll say this together. I'll do it slowly.
Let me just mention something. Invocation. And invocation means you're actually calling it in from your Christos level of self. You're calling in that part of you of wholeness. So that's what an invocation, you're invoking yourself as the Christos self, as the Maharata.
Okay, so we'll speak this, and then we'll come into the actual tones. And before we sing it, I'll go over the tones for the new people. And we'll sing that, and then we'll go into our dialogue. Okay? Okay, so on 3, we'll begin it from the still point. 1, 2, 3.
From the still point of my wholeness in manifest decision, I decree in sovereign knowing, here expressed at my command, lovingly stated absolute intention, the divine will and intention of the one self that is one God. The one self that is one God, this I am.
Let's breathe it in. Okay, and so we begin by saying, in the name of the Melchizedek Cloister, Emerald Order, Holy Order of the Unified Sacred House of One, and then it's pronounced Ma'arata Cum Bivectus, and where you see that line there, you put your name, whatever you call yourself or want to be called or known by. In Evo Kai Un Iblium Bivecti, Ma'a Bivecti Un Ure Urnam Ur, Iste Unte Isa Trajda He Hera, Patate A Ashelum Taeja Intadoe, Shade Ure Akumtan. And we do the last line 3 times. And so everybody knows the song, right? Okay, so on 3. 1, 2, 3.
In the name of the Melchizedek Cloister, Emerald Order,
Holy Order of the Unified Sacred House of One.
Maharata Kumbhivectus. In Evo Kai Unibrium Bivecti. Mahabhivecti Unure Unamur. Ise Unte Isa Traja Hegera. Kaitate Uma Ashelum Taeja Intadoe. Shaddai Ure Akumtan Akumtan. Shaddai Ure Akumtan Akumtan. Shaddai Ure Akumtan.
And just take a moment and breathe in those frequencies. Feels good. Okay. This is the Mahuete code. And we're going to focus on the Iyumbi area, which again is right here for the new people. Okay, right in this area here by the second chakra. And we're going to say Ma'a Hoete Un Ise Esh Adur. And we're going to do that 3 times. Inhale into the yumbi and then exhale out. And then we'll go on to the next slide. Okay? So if everybody's ready, we'll do it on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ma'a hawete un ise eshadur. Ma'a hawete un ise eshadur. Ma'a hawete un ise eshadur.
Inhale. Breathe in the frequencies, the consciousness of the code. And when you're ready, exhale.
And one of the things you can do is when you exhale, is actually exhale the code so it expands out from the inner core of you and around you.
Into your auric fields.
Into your auric fields.
This one is pronounced Le'etore Ithwa Duete Niwa. Okay? So it's Le'etore Ithwa Duete Niwa. All right? Ready? Le'etore Ithwa Duete Niwa. Le'etore Ithwa Duete Niwa. Le'etore Ithwa Duete Niwa. Into the Azare. Right here. And exhale when you're ready. That carries the frequencies of Kathara 2-3. And now this one's easy. I am the Adondra 360 now. So
I am the Adondra 360 now. I am the Adondra 360 now. I am the Adondra 360 now.
Just inhale this all around you. Feel the frequencies. Exhale. This one is Adondra Iesta Uchiwa Adone. You need me to say that again? Adondra Iesta Uchiwa Adone. Adondra Iesta Uchiwa Adone. Adondra Iesta Uchiwa Adone. Just inhale it into you. Co-create with the consciousness of the code. Ta'esha intadore. Ta'esha intadore. Ta'esha intadore.
As I decree it, and so it is. So this is where you're actually decreeing that everything you've done, that it is so.
This is a technique dial-up was given for extra protection. If you're feeling that you need that, this is a really good, quick way to bring in some protection. And we end it with something called the Song of Rama. Okay? And how many people know the Song of Rama? Okay, good. So I'll put the microphone out there so we can hear everybody. But just so you know, this is Ummate Padeon, D-E-E-E-A-O. And then you repeat that again, and then it's Ummate Padeon, Itu Ensha Eja Nita Deo. And we'll do that 3 times. Okay? 3, 1, 2, 3.
Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Itu Ensha Eja Nita Deo.
A little bit faster.
Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Itu Ensha Eja Nita Deo.
Faster.
Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Deo. Ummate Padeon Itu Ensha Eja Nita Deo.
Breathe in the frequencies. Feel your Mashayahana self around you. Because when you sing the song, you are bringing in those levels of self. Just breathe it in. Feel the frequencies. And we'll move on. I know. Go ahead and blow a kiss. It's fine. I do it all the time. So
Why don't we bring in the Hathor?
this is the Hathor image. And they have a little tone down here that we can say to call in them. But first, before we do that, I was going to ask you to basically look into the eyes of that beautiful white cat and look into the Akasha and feel or sense or just know what is the consciousness behind those eyes telling you about awareness in your life. Awareness of what's going on within you, awareness of what's going on around you, awareness of the planetary drama. What is it telling you about awareness that's specific to you? And just take a moment. And if you so choose, if you can write it down, or you can put it in your file cabinet. Just take a moment. It's such a loving presence. And now what we'll do is we'll say this. You want to do it 3 times, Mel?
Yes.
We'll say this 3 times.
I love this.
And the way it is pronounced is Veya Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Okay, we'll do it really slow.
One thing that Speaker One had said years ago, and I equated to it because she said that when you feel out of sorts, or you're feeling a little less than, and you feel like you really need some nurturing, you can imagine this great big Hathor, and you can just kind of climb into the lap and just kind of be nurtured by the Hathor. And so it's kind of
and hear the purring of that big white cat.
Yeah, and knowing it's you at that level.
Okay, so we'll say it again. It's Veyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Okay, on 3.
1, 2, 3. Veyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Veyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Veyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur.
Breathe in the frequencies. Relax. So you're going to see the Hathor throughout this presentation. And what I wanted to point out is up in the Akasha there is the word alien. Okay? It's a new way to perceive the word alien. So the A in alien stands for aware. So the Hathor are asking us to become more aware of ourselves, our holograms, what's going on within us. The L stands for loving. Well, we could all be a little more loving at times. And invincible. Well, the Christ is invincible. We know that, right? So we need to embody, or they're asking us to embody more of our Christic selves. And then enigmatic. That's one that I still struggle with, actually. I think it means mysterious. And then noble. So these are things that, as we move through this presentation, that we're going to be asking you to ponder. And at the top of it is the word conscious, becoming more consciously aware of the moment, because the power is in the now moment, right? Okay. So you're going to see them throughout the presentation because they just wanted to be there. They want to play with us. So now what we're going to do is you're going to see quite a few slides that look like this with different images. And it's, as I said before, it's not for you to have to read the images. They are encryptions. And so when you see a slide like this, it says at the top, preparing for the coming changes, 1998 to 1999. And these are the workshops that were offered through the Freedom Teachings that assisted us to build the bridge of frequency to be able to step into higher and higher levels of consciousness. So you could say we're bridge builders, right? We're building frequency with every thought that we have. We are building that bridge. We're either going forward on that bridge, maybe a little lateral sometimes, or backwards on that bridge, okay? So this is the bridge of frequency that is offered through the Freedom Teachings that allow us to stay on the path, so to speak, okay? So I'm not going to go over every single workshop here because then you won't get to the rest of the module. But I'll just pick out a few things. For instance, this one here, 1998 to 99, is when Kathara was first introduced. Okay? That's when we learned about our multidimensional selves, how we exist within the grand scheme. We learned about the Cathara grid and how profound of an encryption that is. We learned about the Maharic seal for protecting our fields and shields all the time, but particularly during Cathara healing sessions. And we learned about the all-important Vecca codes in the introduction to level 2 of Cathara. And we're going to be playing with the Vecca codes later. This one here in the year 2000, it was a lot about planetary stewardship and recognizing who you are as your eternal self. Okay, we have Beyond the Veils, which was about fetal integration and learning how to sense energies. And we learned about, in the Holy Grail quest, we learned about planetary stewardship. We learned about the secrets of the Indigo children and the, how do I want to say this? Learned about the, I want to say surprise, but we learned about what's contained in the indigo DNA that is so specific to this time that we're in right now. Okay? And then, of course, Voyagers, right? We had Voyagers 1, and then the Voyagers 2, The Secrets of Amenti came, and then boom, the big Voyagers book that had all the new information about what was going on a planetary level on both sides, the Christic and the fallen angelic side. And then, of course, we had workshops where we brought in information on the APIN systems when we had a war edict against the guardian races. We needed to learn about APIN systems. We needed to learn about planetary stewardship. We learned that the Q-Vecca code of the high Vecca codes helps to release Jehovian seals in the body, which is really, really important. And we learned about what really happened at the World Trade Center and the Twin Towers event.
But one of the major things here is that we also were asked to step up to the plate to a higher level of responsibility and to take on a higher code of ethics in order to be able to stabilize our consciousness and be able to help others and ourselves traverse this path to ascension.
So how many regents are in this room right now? Right, perfect. See, there you go. Exactly what you were saying.
Right, but the Regent Consulate, that's the next step. That's where you make an kind of like a vow that you are going to keep the teaching sacred, that you are going to do the best you can to be the best you are. It's actually kind of writing down that you are going to do the best you can, not only to be the best crystal self, but to bring forth in your life as much of a Christic society and beingness as you can.
As well as service.
As well as service. It was the first time we were asked to be in active service.
Okay. And so in 2002, we got the introduction to Cathara Level 1, to Cathara Level 1 and the introduction to Cathara Level 2, which is where we actually learned about the manifestation transduction sequence. We were gifted with the Master's Templar Stewardship Initiative, which, if you haven't looked at that, I highly recommend that. There is everything in there from Merkaba mechanics to who is God, where is the love, to learning about
sound
the celestialing wave and sound tones. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. There's also some really cool maps in there, too. And then we went into the Dance For program with Dance for Life and Dance for Love. We learned about the attitudes and responsibilities of mastery. And we learned that stepping into the consciousness of ascension is not just doing techniques. Techniques are very necessary because they activate what needs to be activated in the DNA. But you can do techniques till the cows come home, but if you don't work to actively embody the attitudes and responsibilities of mastery, you're not going to go very far. The attitudes and responsibilities of mastery ask us to embody certain ways of being, certain ways of living, and making it a way of life. Okay? Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I know.
I always feel it.
I always tell people that the same thing, that the techniques will bring in a lot of your frequency, help you accrete, but if you don't have your thoughts directed towards and helping you align with your Christic self, then it's every time you think an unchristic thought, your accretion level goes down. So you're always doing up, up and down, up and down, up and down. And when
6-minute checkup.
whenever you do up and down, up and down, up and down, what happens? You don't get very far. And so you need the attitudes, you need the consciousness aspect of the teachings to help you stabilize your activations. Mm-hmm. That's what helps you anchor and stabilize them.
Mm-hmm. So then we learned about how to prepare for contact, what the Guardian's protocol was for preparing to have contact with them. We learned about our astral body and flame body activation, and we received codes that actually assisted us, consciousness codes, that assisted us in healing and integrating our shadow, not getting rid of it, but actually healing it and integrating our shadow.
And a lot of times with people coming into the work, a lot of your old-timers don't remind them about flame body activation. You have to have flame body activation in order to anchor the higher frequencies into the here and now, into your physical body and shields. Otherwise, all it does is it's out there within your biofields. So you need the flame body activation in order to anchor all that.
It's like a car on idle. It's like, but you're not going anywhere. When you do the flame body activation, you actually clear things in your fields that allow you to anchor more frequency.
It's like the pillars are coming down, and that kind of like the activation. All of a sudden, you have those holders that hold the pillars that come down and lock into place.
And then in 2003 to 2004, this is where in 2003, in May 2003, we had the 100-year electrical peak called Hitharo. And we had the 100-year magnetic peak called Hethalon in 2003. So when people say Hitharo, Hethalon, that's what the true meaning of that is. It's the 100-year electrical peak and the 100-year magnetic peak. And then we had a program come out for the Dance Floor where it was compiled. All the information from the Dance Floor workshops was compiled in a Dance Floor manual. And then we learned about, in 2003, the science and spirituality of creation. This is where a lot of new people started coming into the work that were not really able to grasp the information. So Ashana spent a lot of time, Speaker 1, spent a lot of time putting together this particular workshop as an introduction to new people coming into the work. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And then, of course, in 2004, we have Kathara 2-3. What an amazing program. It was actually about expedited flame body activation. In the original flame body activation, there was something like 20 techniques. And this is an expedited flame activation in addition to more activations of Kathara 2-3, which allowed a certain type of breathing to come in and activate certain things in the DNA. And then on the Kathara team, we put together these K23 charts, which are compilation charts to help people have encryption sheets is basically why we put them together. Because there was so much information in Kathara 2-3 on crystal body and all kinds of information that this just kind of lays it out for you. So those were the K23 charts. So now you're starting to see what we did on the Kathara team to assist in helping everybody step into that next level of ascension. And then we had information on the pillar of power and the chakra codes. These are amazing codes to work with, where they actually bring in the frequencies of the divine blueprint of your chakras, and you work with those. And in 2004 is when the dial-up actually originally came out, in November of 2004, during an event called the Lady Gaia Awakening, which was actually something that was done over the E-group. It wasn't a workshop. Okay? And then we went to India, and then Kathara 4 came out with all those beautiful consciousness codes, and we activated what's called the Rashalay body. And then what was really, really cool about this is we learned that the Rashalay body was actually the mentor that we learned about in Kathara 1 back in 1999. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, the hot tour were in Morocco, where we had what was called the Etherdon Awakening. And they gifted us with so many things. But in Morocco, they gifted us with something called the Songs of Passage, which are some absolutely gorgeous songs. And in September, October, they gifted us with something called the Kasha Key. And this is your doorway into the inner hub domains. You had something you wanted to say about that.
I know. She can really tell. Because I like the songs and the sound tones, and those songs of passage actually activate the monadic passage. And so you could go and sing them, and they're not just pretty songs. They have what's called Sita geometries. There's like 10,000 codes that the sound tones, if you could see the sound tones in the sequence they are with your eyes, there would be like 10,000 codes. Yeah, that get activated when you sing it, and that monadic passage. I mean, so much starting from the Song of Orion, which had to do with activating the monad, and the passage going back through the galactic core. And so this was a great one for teaching us sonically how to start opening that for ourselves.
Okay, and again in 2005, this is when we had the first Catharity modules. And one was Indigo Children, and I presented that one, and Mel here presented the Vecca Consciousness Codes. And then, of course, we did the Cathara 1 module, and we continued offering more and more modules to assist and helping people to understand the information so that it was easier to integrate the information. And this was a big one, isn't it? So we learned about the Tauran in 2006 that was flipped upside down. And when we received the technique and flipped it back up, we turned our lives upside down. So that's what happened with me. and then we received hub maps, the beginning of the safe zone maps in Tenerife in 2006. And in May of 2006, we received the Aurora frequencies. We began working with the beautiful frequencies of the Auroras, the Aurora councils. And then we had the Sacred Sexuality Trilogy of Divine Relationship. And we had a lot more modules, as you can see down here. And then in 2007, this is when we began being gifted with the Crystal River frequencies. And the Crystal River prayer came out at the FOL 2007 workshop. Then in 2007 and into 2008, we went into what are called the 12 Tribes classes, which were basically a calling of the Aquafarian Shield. And we had the Christ Star Awakening. Here we had our Christ Star vehicle. It's our first introduction to the Christ Star vehicle. And in Peru, we learned about the Ascension Code and the Spanner Gates, which are necessary for Ascension, and the Ascension map. Okay, it may just look like a pretty picture, but it is fully encrypted. It's an Ascension map. And then here we, in Amsterdam, was another workshop that Speaker One put together for people coming into the work that needed to understand a new level of the teachings. And so this is another one that if people are new to the work, that is highly recommended. It's Amsterdam, 2007. And then we have some more Catharity modules. As you can see, we learned downstepped Cathara 2-3, sections 7-8, because that was the most challenging one for people to understand. We learned about mastery had a lot to do with having humor, being able to laugh at yourself a lot. And we learned about exploring the God worlds and what exactly those worlds were, and more about manifestation and becoming awake, aware, and able. What did you want to say, Mel?
Well, aware, awake, and able. One of the things that we like to teach people is being aware, being awake, and being able. And we actually put some of that in the back of the Cathara handbook. Of, okay, we're aware of what's going on around us. We're awake. You know, can we actually not zone out? And can we be able? Will we use the tools? One of the things that Speaker 2 says is that here are tools, and make them your own. So what comes to your mind to use the codes for, or to use the songs for, and so we explored a lot of those, and then we put actually some suggestions down in the back of the A&R handbook under Aware, Awake, and Able. If you haven't seen it, everything of how to use the songs for protection, how to the different things that Speaker 1 has talked about for your shields, and using the codes. And so it's as we go forward in the drama, I mean, it becomes more important ever to be awake, to not only zone out. How many of us
To be aware.
to be aware, yes. How many of us go to work and we're kind of in our own little world, or we're in the kitchen and you slice yourself with a knife, which I have done now 3 times within the last 4 weeks. I never have done that before, and
Third time's a charm.
yeah, it's and it comes back to being aware, being mindful of what's around you and how you operate in the world. So I guess that's what I needed to say.
And it's actually, when you bring up mindfulness, it's what is your mind full of? Mm-hmm. Mindfulness is a really, really important concept because you can have your mind full of all kinds of things. What am I going to do? What was on TV? What did the kids do? What are we going to cook for dinner? What am I going to do next week? How am I going to get to that workshop? Is that flight going to be on time? All that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Don't tell me it doesn't happen because I know it happens. But if you could take a little time every day, this is something I started doing that's just really helped me tremendously because I had all those thoughts too. I'd be sitting at the computer and I'd be thinking all those thoughts while I'm doing whatever on the computer. And I realized that if I took a little time every day, no matter how small that time was, and I did something called clearing space for source, because I realized that my mind was so full of information and things that I wanted to do, things I didn't do, regrets that I had, that I realized if I just cleared a little bit of space, then I could see what source had to tell me. Mm-hmm. And it works. Okay. I highly recommend it.
And when you're about to do a project or you're about to use knives in the kitchen, I have found myself now, instead of
center yourself first.
Centering is I take a deep breath and anchor myself, and then become very deliberate. The knife, and no, not just being going chop 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 chop, but being very deliberate in what I'm doing.
But she's cleared the food first, released the jarry, cleared the jaroche.
but it's being aware. Being aware and making sure you're grounded, because with all the higher frequencies coming in, it's very easy to get into that expanded space and to be somewhere else, because so many people have this emotional feeling of not wanting to be here. But it's being here in the now point that makes you the most powerful, because then you can operate as the Christic being you are.
Mm-hmm. And then in 2008, we got the all-important loadout, the information on the Mashihana folds and the Great Milky Way evac. And then we began what's called the Sliders program, where the Iluri Reshatam was introduced, the water seed code, which contains the encryption for all 144 Christic elements, which is an amazing code to work with. And then we learned how to work with it in order to begin clearing our fields and clearing our food and our water. And then in Sliders 3, we had our first Orb Fest, where the orbs actually did come. It was quite amazing. We also learned about an exercise program with the Arayas and something called the Aliyahs. And then, of course, we had some more Cathara team modules there. And in 2009 is when we were introduced to the Buddhas, the Buddha team. Remember, Buddha means your central self. Okay? And we were introduced to a team that was committed once we went through the technique and we activated certain things in our bodies and in our biologies, that is committed to helping us slide. Okay? They will stay with us until that occurs. And then we had the Drums of Aquafarium, where we were gifted with the background Regenesis code, where we can all start going back to the age of 33, which I would just love to do. And then, of course, the Camelot Project came out. How many people actually came into this work through the Camelot Project? Right, exactly. It was the official disclosure by the Guardians. And Speaker One gave it and did an amazing job, as she always does. And then in Sliders 4, we learned about the call of Aurora, and that had to do with probabilities and domains. In Sliders 5, we learned about a lot of things, actually. We learned about the secondary North circuitry, and we learned about possession, a little bit or a lot, however you choose to take that. And then we moved into Slider 6, where the summaries began coming out. And then we had some more Cathar team modules. This is the first module, the Elements of Discovery, that we put together as a compilation. Okay? And so that's a really good one, recommended. It was actually, we were actually asked to put that together by the Guardians for people to understand, that were just coming into the work, to begin to understand what it was all about.
Yeah, the 15-dimensional anatomy, the God worlds, cosmic clock, and the Crystal River Prayer.
Yeah, it's an amazing series. And then we have some more Catharity modules. We have the DNA template, and we have the core creation sequence where we learned about the Sita cycle, which is the spirit body cycle, the Taran cycle, and something called the Starborn cycle. And you can that's just a compilation of so many workshops. And this is actually a teaser. I guess I probably shouldn't have put that up there, but that's something that we're working on to offer when this module finally does come out as a DVD product. And then we move into 2010 and 2011. Here we're gifted in FOL 2010 with what I lovingly refer to as the calendar. There's so much information on there. I would recommend that you get that and hear Speaker 1 go through all of that. Then we had the Makers of Wings and Other Things. And we met our WA family in Sliders 7. And in Sliders 8, we were introduced to the Cosmea consciousness, which is right there, as you can see next to it. And Sliders 9, we learned about the Don Kiti awakening. And we had this module come out here called Spirals of Creation, where we learned about the Christic crystal spiral and the Metatronic spiral, and how the Metatronic spiral was going to try to override the crystal spiral. So that's a very interesting module. This is the APIN Systems is a module that we're working on getting that out as a product. But that's one that's basically given as a story from Voyagers and some updates throughout it. And then we had Slide and Span, which is an amazing module if you want to understand what it is when you slide and span, what the body needs to go through for sliding and spanning. And then we began, we did 2 workshops on emotional body healing at the Gruel. And then we had some more modules. And here we are. It's 2011. I'm sure there will be more to add there next year. And then what we're beginning now are webinars. How many people attended the Cathar Team webinar? Right. It was really, really a very good thing for us to do. We are, it's still kind of, we're still kind of testing it out, but we are going to be preparing some more webinars just in case we decide to go ahead with it. And this one was about stair-step creation and the basic anatomy. It was about fetal integration and the growth cycles, Barrow, which everybody wants to know about, and return to Adwanman and the 3 paths of the Christ. Okay? Yes. Now, it's time to slow the BPR a little bit. Look into the eyes of the Hatur. Think about all that you've gone through. Some of you may have participated in all of those workshops that we mentioned. Some of you only a couple. Some of you none. Makes no difference. The consciousness behind those eyes knows everything. So when you look into the eyes of the Hatur, what are those eyes telling you about love in your life? Is it telling you that they would like you to explore loving yourself a little bit more, or being more loving in general? Are they asking you to recognize the infinite, eternal, and undeniable love of Source and to find that in your life? So just take a minute, feel out what the message is for you today. And Source love is the greatest love of all, is it not? Okay, so we'll say Vyeyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur, and we'll do that 3 times, and then we'll just breathe it in and expand it out. And we know if you didn't get anything, that's okay. It's in your fields. It'll integrate when the time is right for you. Okay, so on 3.
1,
3,
2,
no.
3. Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur. Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur. Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur.
I feel like I want to go meow.
I know. Oh, meow.
Meow, 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 meow. Just feel the frequencies. See if you can feel the whiskers tickling your consciousness. Sue Clemson rendered this diagram, by the way. Okay, so we're going to move on. Take it away, Mel.
Can I have the clicker? Well, all energy is conscious, and consciousness is energy. That's something basic we learn in Kathara. And way back in Tangible Structure of the Soul, we found that there is structure to the soul, which means there is structure to consciousness. And consciousness has structure. And that's where science and spirituality come together, is consciousness. Go ahead and send your consciousness into the code and expand out. And then bring that, when you're ready, bring that feeling of the code back into your Azure, and then expand it within and around you. God's source is as close as the air around you. It's as close as the person next to you. It's as close as this code. And no one is ever separated from God's source. Evolution is expanding into the totality, into the hugeness of who you are. It's remembering more, and that's what we talk to people about, healing their template. Because as they heal their template, they allow more alignment with their Christo self. And they remember more of who they are, which is, I am God, this I am. This I am. So what we want you to do is, again, go into the code and bring it back to you. And we're going to, each one of you can either sing to yourself or say it to yourself as the code is within you and you're within the code itself, is Aya Aye, Heya Nave. And you repeat that 2 times. Aya Aye, Heya Nave. And then the next line would be Ayahe, Ayasa. And then Tiesu, Are Siasa. So where the apostrophes are, that's really kind of an accent mark, where you would accent it. And of course, the capitals would be the long vowels, and the small would be, so that would be Ya, and that would be A. Okay? So go ahead and just say that to yourself. What this tonal sequence is doing is speaking, is kind of like making that bridge to the code for you to activate it. Anytime any of the songs, what you're doing is you're kind of knocking on the door and saying, hey, I'm here. Let's have a relationship. Okay. Aya, yay. Heya, nave. Aya, aye. Heya, nave. Aya, hey. Aya, sa. Ti, esu. Are. Siyasa. And just imagine that there's sparkling purple rain just coming down upon you. It can have silver and gold within the rain. It could have any other colors, but it's called the purple rain. And it just comes down and comes down through you and as you, and kind of fills out your fields.
It's called turning on the shine.
Turning on the shining, absolutely.
Turn on the shine.
Turn on the shine. So go ahead and say it a couple more times. Ah, ya, aye. Hey, ya, nave. Ah, ya, aye. Hey, ya, nave. Ah, ya, hey. Ah, ya, sa. Ti, esu. Are, siasa. And close your eyes a moment and feel the feeling of the code, the feeling of that purple rain. It's consciousness. Try to sense it in a feeling sense, because that's where that cognition, that sense feel. It's not thinking about how it feels, but actually allowing yourself to open to the part of you that is that rain, that is that code. Aya, aye. Heya, nave. Aya, aye. Heya, nave. Aya, hey. Aya, sa. Ti, esu. Are, siasa. Go ahead and send a spark of your consciousness into the code. And then bring back the code into you. And then close your eyes, and I want you to imagine a pillar expanding within you. It's expanding out to the width of your body, and then out around you and as part of you. And the top goes up to God's source, and the bottom part goes down to Eartha core. And feel the feeling that this pillar of frequency is alive. And feel what it would be like to be at one with it. And it's from this sense of consciousness space that you create. Because here is where you start realizing the feel of creating with your Christos template. Because you are becoming and then being as the God pillar. And then you can create, it's your inner divine. And that's you and Source as one. This hologram was intended to be joyful, and sometimes we forget that. Things seem to get serious. And what we learn to do is, as we heal, is to know ourselves as the Christ and understand. I don't know how many of you are starting to feel, but sometimes when the frequency is there and you're doing your techniques, you're just being there in the consciousness of all there is, you feel so strong. You have a sense of power, of being powerful. And when you have that inner sense of being powerful, that's you again, you as Source and as one. And we can then understand that that's where the joy is. The joy has been covered up with all the muck. And as we clear it, we can allow the true sense of our being to come out. So just take a moment and in your Azray, imagine a silver golden nugget. And name that as your nugget of joy. And just take some frequency and polish it up. If there's any stuff around it, just clear it. And you can use the breath, because the breath is part of one of the God languages. It's part of the God language of movement. Movement just isn't with your body, but it's as we move energy with our breath. So just take a moment and clear that nugget of joy. Because when we can come from that feeling of joy within, which we become aware of as we expand inside and become that and be as that pillar, then we find that even in a falling system, it's okay because we are God's source, this I am.
Hang on a second. You can't see from where you're sitting. The reason that this image was chosen, besides the fact that it's Speaker One dancing with the orbs, is the expression on her face, to me, exemplifies pure, ultimate joy. So sometimes when you're in your space and you're doing your meditations or you're clearing space for Source or whatever, how many times do you have this little grin sneak across and you find yourself, you come back into your awareness and into your body, and you've got this smile just plastered on your face, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we are experiencing the joy. We are the joy. Mm-hmm. We just need to, as Mel was saying, we need to remember we are the joy. We have to find the joy, even though we're in a system where some things are challenging, no doubt. But it's up to us as manifestors, as conscious manifestors of this reality, to experience and create the joy for ourselves, and not expect others to give us that joy. Right. So this is, I just wanted to explain, because you can't really see. Yeah. That's Speaker One dancing with the orbs at the very first Orb Fest in St. Kitts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Speaker One says about joy, she says, be a joy maker. Be a joy maker. You know, and joy doesn't mean necessarily happy. You know, I find that that happiness is an emotion, and we can create it at will. But joy is God frequency and is who you are. Do you see the difference, or do you feel the difference between happiness and joy? Joy is who you are. Happiness is just energy and motion. Become aware that you are living, breathing fields as aspects of Source. And we forget that when we talk about Source, we're talking about breathing consciousness. So let's go ahead and breathe that and close your eyes. And you go into your Azure and just breathe for a moment from your Azure. And breathe. And breathe in the raw potential to feed and fuel your Christic choices. Breathe in to fuel your living Christic experience. Breathe in to feed and provide a means to change the contents of your hologram. Breathe in. We learn to breathe in consciousness as a way of maintaining balance, as a way of healing. Go ahead and breathe into the code and breathe back out. And close your eyes and put your hand up in the air. And try and put your attention, your focus on that hand. Can you feel the consciousness of the air around you? Continue just to breathe. Breathe in and out. Don't think. We want you to sense, feel. You can sense, feel the frequency going through your hands. You might feel a buzz. You might feel a lightness or heaviness or nothing at all. But just put your inner focus, your consciousness there in your hand as if you are your hand. And you can actually see perhaps a mini you on your hand and breathing in the frequency and sending it down your hand into your Azure. That is God consciousness. And it's that close. I like this picture because it's a picture of the shields. And And it's part of our anatomy. And I always had a fascination with the shields because the shields actually hold so much and activate and anchor our consciousness within the shields. And when we use the codes, whether it's the Vecca codes or the Scepter codes, we're actually knocking on the door within our shields, knocking on the door and saying, hey, wake up. And that's what we use the codes for. And then in your shields, you also have receptors for the huge God world pillars, the scepter pillars that are bringing down, that are parts of us that they're a consciousness pillar that connects us all the way up to God's source. You know, creation is built on the pillars of God. So this is you and all your parts that everything connects to. And techniques help us activate and light up the fire letters and scalar wave patterns in our shields, the consciousness of the rays. And it's when we start aligning with God's source and we play and sense, feel at being consciousness, at being love and grace and appreciation and gratitude and joyful. That's what stabilizes everything that the techniques help us activate. As we heal, we bring in more of our higher consciousness, which begins to activate our flame bodies and to affect the tribal shield. The tribal shield, we had sound tones, and they're also in the stewardship manual. But that was one of the first times that we actually learned about activating the consciousness part of us that's called the fire letters, that are actually like little tiny codes, software programs in our shields that operate things within our greater anatomy. And the tribal shield, that's where we find out that we are part, it's not just us and our shield, we're part of a greater family. We are part of a family here. We are part of what's called the tribal shield. So as we say, yes, I want to go forward on my Christic path, that's why perhaps you can't come to workshop, but you might be at home and all of a sudden you feel this frequency coming in because you're connected to the tribal shield, which means that the activations and frequencies coming through the workshop, you are getting at your home station. Because sometimes you have to hold the grids. If everybody came to the workshop, who would hold the grids while you're gone? And so that tribal shield is a connection of consciousness of everybody. We're all our own individuated consciousness, but we're connected through a greater construct of consciousness. And I love this. And that's why, as we heal, each one of us that heals, part of our template, it releases some pressure on the shield. You know, it's like there's part of us that's like this, and as we open, it helps we relax, which means it has a domino effect on the rest of the shield. And so as we heal a part of us, it makes it easier for everybody else to heal that aspect, because you've released a little pressure on the whole shield by doing your own work. And that's why when we talk about helping other people, it starts here, inside us, because how we help other people is by doing our own healing, because that holds the door of consciousness for everybody else to walk through. Our basic contract is indigos. Speaker 2 says our basic contract and our greatest contract is to hold and run as much frequency as possible, to be a holder of frequency. That's why it all comes back to that A&R of responsibility. That's our responsibility, is to do our own healing, not to judge others whether they're doing the techniques. You know, there was a time when everybody would say, well, what techniques are you doing? As if there was a number, as if they were saying, well, I'm doing this and this. Or I would ask Pammy, and I would talk about, and she would be doing something, and I would have this moment of saying, oh my God, should I be doing that? I'm not doing that. You know? And we don't have to do that. I got to a point where I realized that I had to do, what I did was, in the moment, was not only good for my own shields, but also for the contract I held we all have what we call land entrustments. In the Kauai workshop, Ash talks about where we're in places on grids, and we might be there permanently, or we might be nomads where we're moving around, but we hold the grids there. And so we have certain frequencies that we need to activate and anchor in order to fulfill that stewardship. And so sometimes we'll do things that maybe no one else is doing, and because of those specific personal service contracts. They help us whatever is needed, whether it's the consciousness of the land or the consciousness of the people around us. And so it's always nice to hear what other people are doing, but don't judge yourself by whether you're doing more or less, because we get into what Speaker 2 calls a good enough consciousness. Am I good enough? Am I doing good enough? And that is where your mind gets off the Christic path. It's a very subtle seduction away from the Christic path. So that's when we bring our focus back and say, yes, I am God, this I am. And what I'm doing is good enough, otherwise I'd be doing something else. Something else, something else would come to mind. There's you have your own thing that feels good. And then something else might come into mind, and you might go and sing a few songs, and then, or you might all of a sudden open one of the handbooks, you go, gosh, I forgot about that, we did, and it's amazing, it's sort of like it might be 2 or 3 years ago, and so you do it because sometimes you're needing to fill in frequencies. We recommend to a lot of people going back to some of the older workshops to fill in some of those frequencies, because we've been going to such a high level, very fast drama, kind of like a chess game, and what we need to do, since we activate the 11th and 12th subharmonics, is filling in 1 through 10, and we get that by going back and integrating some of your older ones. One of the things that I really liked, she talked about fetal integration from beyond the veils. And there's so many of us that for so many years, we didn't feel safe. And Ashana would tell us that your safety is within your own shields. Not to go out of body, but to expand within and anchor. And I found out when I did Beyond the Veils and allowed myself to fully anchor into my body, all of a sudden I felt safe. And when you feel that sense of safeness and safety by being in your own body and anchoring to the consciousness of the shields and consciousness of God's source, you as the this I am, then that's when you realize how powerful you really are. Because when you're grounded, no one can, even physically, you're there balanced. No one can push you over. You're balanced. Yeah, just checking. I was dancing. And so it's becoming that holder of frequency and filling in those sub-frequencies. You can go through the gates as we go. We might, if we had to, let's say, be evac and we're going into a different rotation of particle spin, you want to be able to have those frequencies filled in so you can stay there, or not have to go into sort of like a holding area until you can amass those frequencies. So it's good to go back to some of the old ones that you feel drawn to kind of round out.
No, I look at it this way. If you're standing at the gate, you want to have the best resume that you possibly can when that time comes. And if that means going back and filling in the frequencies that you missed, perhaps it's a gap in your understanding, or maybe something didn't activate fully because you didn't understand the technique, that's what you want to do. You want to have the best resume that you possibly can when you are standing at that gate. Whatever that gate is for you, you still want to have the best resume you can.
And I want to talk about that too. It's that she brought it up about standing at the gate, because so many people wonder about. Remember, we talked about when you're fully in your shields that you're safe. And when we talk about the safe zone map, so many people got worried about, am I near a gate? Am I near a place where I can be evac? When you work with consciousness, the moment that your consciousness equals the consciousness of a gate, you're through the gate. So it doesn't matter if you're 500 miles from a gate. Do you understand? As soon as your consciousness equals a consciousness of a gate, you're through it. And that's why probably some of you might have experiences with being in, all of a sudden, you're doing techniques or something and you're going out walking or driving, hopefully grounded. And all of a sudden you have a feeling of being in a different space-time because you have gone through an area, possibly, where there is a portal. And your consciousness at that moment equaled the consciousness of the portal. So it's very important to essentially do the techniques and work on the ethics, that code called the ANRs, based on what's called the Eonic code, and that will anchor and stabilize.
That way your consciousness will be equal to the Christic portals.
Right.
Because it works both ways. Mm-hmm.
So as you build these currents, remember when we did the magic songs of co-creation, when those first came in, we were bringing down the primal currents. And the Ire, the Mane, and the Manu. And as we open up more to who we really are, more of these currents come in. And we are bringing alive progressively the eternal consciousness, the eternal flame. It exists within you and also surrounds the entire universe. So let's go ahead and just take that spark of your consciousness and go into the flame. And then close your eyes. And allow yourself to expand within the flame. Imagine a flame. It can be any color that's within you and around you and as you. And you can touch all information by just expanding and feel out what that flame feels like, the very perimeters and edges of the flame. As you expand into at one-ment with the eternal flame, sense the flame's consciousness. Sense its aliveness. Allow yourself to breathe in now. Breathe in the consciousness of the flame in you, and as you breathe out, expand the flame. And then breathe in more of that consciousness of the flame into you, and then breathe out and expand the flame. And once more, breathe in the consciousness of the flame, and then breathe out. And to help us stabilize, of course, is what I keep pounding on people, is the 12 attitudes and responsibilities of mastery. The angelic mind recognizes that as a conscious being, it has a choice as to which ideas it will represent. And the thoughts that you entertain in your mind is the frequencies of the gates that you are aligning yourself with. So essentially, are you aligning? Now, that doesn't mean that if you have a momentary lapse of consciousness, that all of a sudden you're stuck. No, it's being aware and awake and able. You find that your mind gets off track. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm thinking, not so good thoughts. And it's being able to go, going back on track and focusing on something good, something, whether it's LTR or whether it's if you're at work and, I am God, this I am. Or, I am powerful. I am the Christ. Whatever you decide feels right for you, and that you have that sense feeling of knowingness. And what you can do too is, and let's do that. Just go ahead and send your point of your consciousness into the flame. Okay, the eternal flame there. Now allow a line of frequency to go up to joy. And attach that line of frequency to the concept, to the consciousness, not attach so much, but connect to the consciousness of joy. Now send another line of frequency to love and connect you at the center of the flame with the consciousness of love. Now send a line of frequency to grace and connect to grace and become graceful. Because as you send the lines of consciousness, it becomes an eternal circle. It goes out, you breathe out, and you breathe back in. you send out, expand, and then backflow to source. Now send a line to gratitude and connect with gratitude. Now send one to reverent respect. And now to the ability to respond to life, which is responsibility. Now send a line of consciousness to trust. And it's interesting that trust is number 6 and joy we have as number 12, because it's like trusting that joy will bring you home. Send the line of consciousness to accountability, because we're accountable for all our thoughts, all our actions, all our choices. And by being accountable and knowing you're accountable, it will help you align much better with more of a consistent practice of Christic thought. Now send the line of consciousness to impeccability. Impeccability is like holding on to that pillar of grace and sound light within you and as you. And now send the line to mindfulness. Open the conduit to mindfulness. What is your mind full of? Well, when you send the frequency to mindfulness, your mind becomes full of that frequency of God's source. And now send one to fearlessness. Because when you align as God this I am, there's no room for fear. There's only, whenever you fear, it's because you haven't aligned with the God source this I am. So it should be a reminder that, and you can tell your body that sometimes your mind isn't fearful, but that first chakra, gets going and shakes, and then your whole body shakes, and it's just saying, hey, I'm connected to God's source. And breathe in, and throughout your whole body, send that frequency of source to it. And then engage detachment. Send the connection to engage detachment, and breathe in. And now at the center of the flame, bring in breath into your azure, and you're going to breathe it out. Just hold it and hold it. And when I give you the signal, you're going to breathe it out through all 12 lines. And then you're going to see the frequency running and around the circle and everything coming back and recycling back to the center of you at the flame. Now. And now, let's do it with responsibilities. A little bit different. It's the responsibilities we have that connect with our attitudes. Send a line of frequency to sense, so that we can more develop our sensing ability, the cognition, which is the true seeing, because we're seeing and sensing and feeling with the inner vision. Now to self-actualization, so that we have a purpose of using the attitudes, which helps us realize who our self really is. And then send a connection to self-sovereignty. So we know that as we stand in the Christ, we are self-sovereign, that we are responsible for ourselves, and we are the Christ. We are God's self, this I am. Now send it to self-containment, so that we understand that when we, in no matter what energy consciousness we are in, that we're always have the choice, and don't let it either go over into someone else's space and violate their space. Whether, it doesn't matter if it's Christic energy or non-Christic energy. We don't violate other people's space, because they're a self-sovereign being, and they may not choose that. You are just there, and you stand in an offering. If people choose to come towards you and be in your fields, then that's their choice. Send a line of frequency to self-discipline. And self-discipline, where we are there with, we don't go with emotion. We don't let the movement of energy take us out of our God space. Then self-love. That's open the connection there to self-love. By loving ourselves and realizing that we are God, and how could we not love God? But understanding that when we love God, it's not something outside of us. It's us as God's self, this I am. And then by being that love, that is the frequency of God's source. And that is what other people get. That is what other people can key into. And you can actually change the dynamics of a room. You can, if you have anger, you can actually build a standing wave of anger in a room that could cause a riot. Or you can go in with the frequency of self-love. And a whole different dynamic happens then. Send a line of frequency to spiritual integrity, which goes so well with self-sovereignty, and spiritual integrity and sense go so well together, because sometimes spiritual integrity, it's that feeling of being clean spiritually. It doesn't mean that you haven't done bad things, that you haven't behaved in a less than Christic manner. But it's being able to let go of judgment of yourself. And when you let go of judgment of yourself, it allows you again to go back into God's self, this I am, the point of spiritual integrity, and you go in and sense that feel, and just take a moment and try to sense where that is in you. Where do you feel a sense of rightness? It could be in the Azure. It could be, in your Yumbi. It could be in your Rajna. It could be anywhere. But just go into, or you could just expand into the whole pillar within and have that sense of that integrity. When there's an integrity, a house is in integrity, it means its foundation and its walls are stable. When we'll say, what's the integrity of the car or the house or of anything, and it means that is the structure unbroken? Is the structure capable of holding a consciousness? And so also when we talk about spiritual integrity, is it also, are you in an unbroken space of stability, of flexibility, of knowing yourself as whole, not as being broken, but knowing yourself as whole? And when you know yourself as whole, then that gives a whole new meaning to being in spiritual integrity. Send a line to appreciation and bring that back. Appreciating all forms of life, including yourself. And open the conduit to patience. The last workshop, when we got the new codes and the new parts of consciousness called the virtues, the first thing I thought is patience is a virtue, It's actually a component of one of the virtues. So there's something in the race consciousness that remembered about the virtues and patience. And one of the hardest things, sometimes it's easy to have patience with others, but not with yourself. But again, everybody grows at their own space. And it's okay each moment to do what needs to be done for yourself spiritually at that moment. And to have patience with yourself. Sometimes we want to do it all now. We, sort of like, can we ascend now? Can we go home now? And having that feeling inside of no space, no time. That everything will be in divine right order. And when you get into, when you get into that God space, you are divine right order. And therefore you are patience. Send the conduit, open the conduit to kindness. Sometimes it's very easy when the frequencies come in and we get a little headachy or not feel good to be very snippy, or just don't feel like talking to people,
That's where self-containment comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-containment, but also kindness. A lot of times it's very easy when you live in relationship with someone because living in relationship is a whole spiritual journey, and it's very easy when all of a sudden to be very snippy at like for me, at my husband, and I'll tell him I'm sorry, I'm responding through the headaches, and I'll step back and I'll look at him and think, he's such a kind person, and I'll try to remember why I'm with him in the first place. And it changes the whole dynamic when, because not only am I not being kind to him, but I'm not being kind to myself. Because what I spew or what I send out to others is exactly what I'm sending to myself.
12-fold. It comes back 12-fold.
And it comes back 12-fold, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, conservation. Send a connection of energy to conservation. And conservation, yes, it has, we just think about conservation being life forms, being the ocean, being animals, being the land. But it also has to do with conservation of your energy. And that's very important because we all want to help others. But there's sometimes that you have to say no, and it's a sort of power that we have to learn, that it's okay to say no. Because by saying no to others, sometimes it's saying yes to yourself. You know, no, I can't do that healing work. No, I can't talk with you now because I need to take a nap. I need to spend time with my eternal self. I need to just be away from everybody, you know, and remember who I am as an individual. And so that conservation sometimes has to do with your own conservation of energy and resources within. So it's being kind to yourself, and it goes right into that conservation. And then cooperation diplomacy. Open the conduits of frequency. It's something sometimes we have to learn because, you know, a lot of us can see things or sense things or know things that people out there in the 3D world don't. And sometimes when people say things, we just want to say, come on, get over yourself. You know, or the cab driver that wanted to tell me about his religion on the way to the airport. And I mentioned that I was into spirituality, not religion, and he was giving me a whole lecture on that I needed to have a book that told me how to do. Of course, I didn't tell him about Voyagers at that point, but you know, needed to have a book that would lay out, you know, how to do things and what I needed to do. And sometimes cooperation diplomacy is allowing. You know, that connects to allowance and stuff with the attitudes, and so it means sometimes just listening and just holding space, because there was part of me that just wanted to explain things to him, and that was one of the, and I've learned
self-containment.
See, self-containment can be energy in the form of words, and
kindness.
And kindness, yeah. I just said thank you. He gave me the website that I should check out, and I probably will, just in the thought and spirit of unity through diversity, just so I know where he's coming from energetically. You know, just as there might be a gift for me there. And that might be
appreciation.
It might be a waking dream that there's something there that maybe will actually spark a remembrance. Because remember, we have probable selves in all, over 20,000.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, you know, and so we have selves in all different religions, in all different space-time dimensions. So maybe there's something that will spark remembrance, that will allow me to heal one of those selves, which then can come into unification. I can heal the vector code or the apartheid in my shields and turn it to the Christic way. So who knows where the lessons will come, and that's one thing I learned, that sometimes, cooperation diplomacy is just sometimes Mom's word.
Self-containment.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Grace. I love that. I love the concept of grace. As Shauna talks about that grace, or the state of grace, is where you don't feel a sense of hate. And that every time I see that, it gives me a different feeling, because I can remember thinking, oh gosh, I just hate that, and there's an emotion behind it, I just hate that. And where'd the word hate come from? If I'm a Christic being, do I hate something? If everything is consciousness, what I've just stated is that I hate that piece of God consciousness. Which really means is I hate the part of me that is that consciousness. And what that gives me is kind of alert. The red flags red lights go off, the flags go up, and saying, okay. And I look down at my Maharic shield, and I see what's sort of like saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, and I go down there, and I just see a mini me down there, and I take some of the higher frequencies, and I start healing that. And how you heal it is whatever comes to your mind. I might feel like since we started the 12th dimension and take an elevator all the way down, and if there's any accords or attachments at each level, I go from the 12th floor to the 11th, to the 10th, to the 9th, essentially going down through all the dimensions, and then back up again, and spray it and clear it out with all the frequencies. And so that I can get to a state where the word hate has no emotional charge behind it. And when the word hate has no emotional charge behind it, that's when you know you're truly in a state of grace. So when you find that you have a less than Christic thought, or sometimes we say those things, understand that we are in a distorted world, and it's okay. The thing is to be aware, awake and able. And as soon as you catch yourself, do the healing right there, because right then you have it in your mind, and you can have a focus, heal it, and breathe, and then go on. And you'll find there's different layers that come up. But each time we do a separate one, each time we do that bit of healing, we get more alignment, more information that comes in that's us as our Christic self.
One of the things that I'd like to add to that is when Mel's talking about hate, it's a very strong emotion, and strong emotions are how we manifest. We manifest with our emotions. So in the Makers of Wings and other things, we were gifted with a technique that was referred to later on called the nano-opposition. And when you go through this technique and you remove this from your encryption lattice, what that allows you to do is to anchor more Christic frequency, because anywhere in your body that you are experiencing a negative emotion, such as hate, is a part of your template that is not going to anchor that crystal spiral, right? And so once you get really good with this nano-opposition technique, you can do what Mel said. Catch the thought, do a quick nano-opposition, move into the crystal spiral time wave as the technique shows you, and release it from your encryption lattice, and then it no longer has an effect on you. Okay? Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've been talking about spending time and observing your thoughts. So what we'd like to do with this one is, if you can see the transparent Akasha, it's in front of a gate, right? So there's a couple ways you can work with this. One of the things that I like to do is play with my mind as to what's behind the gate. But I think that we might do in this one, because of what we've been discussing, the ANRs and self-containment and kindness and spiritual integrity, is to take a little journey, if you want, if you choose, through the Rushe, the center of the Akasha code there, and go into your own garden. So what we do with the ANRs is we tend to our own gardens, because if you are on the outside and you are looking into somebody else's garden, there is no way you can know. There is no way you can see. There's no way that you can know what is going on in that person's garden, because you only see it from your own perceptions, right? So we tend to our own garden. So what I like to do is I like to just go beyond the gate, travel through the Akasha, and take a look at my garden. And, there's always weeding that needs to be done. I don't like weeding. But when you weed, and then you have new growth, you have new potential, you have new opportunities that pop up. So if you so choose, you can take a spark of your consciousness, send it into the center of the Rushe there, and go beyond the gate. Step through the gate.
And take a look when you're there into your own secret garden. And if there's things that need to be tended or cleaned up, take this opportunity now to do it in whichever way form. Everything's perfect. Your own self will know what type of work tending needs to be done.
So one of the things that's really, really important in stepping into the next newer level of frequency or the newer level of consciousness is to never compromise time with yourself for anyone. Because it's when you spend this time with yourself and the quiet time observing your thoughts, that's when you are connecting through that inner pathway straight to your connection to Source. You are building that bridge of frequency.
And there may be thoughts that come through your mind that are less than, but you can observe them as they pass through you. You don't have to stop them and start making movies in your mind of what could happen, because then your energy is lost in the future. Or you don't have to stop your thoughts and think about what's happened in the past, because then you've sent your energy into the past, and you've essentially sent your energy away from the center of your own power, from your own secret garden within, the now point.
So as you come back through the garden and you pass through the Akasha, take a moment and just feel. Put yourself in the center of the Ruche, which is at the center of the Akasha code, as you're coming back through the gate, and feel the frequencies. Feel each pillar, anchor, because you've just weeded some garden and you've created some space for Source to fill. You've weeded out the weeds, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions that have been blocking the energy from flowing through your biofields. Just breathe in and allow that to run through your body. Clearing, healing, transmuting, bringing everything back to the crest. So again, we're talking about thinking because thoughts are so important to embodying a new level of consciousness. We know that our bodies, our DNA, is made up of scalar waves, right? We know that thoughts are also made up of scalar waves. So that implies that what we think affects our biology and our DNA. So what is it like to think like a guardian? Doesn't it look like that's what's happening there? Have you ever seen a better picture of a guardian embodied? The wind is blowing through her hair, her eyes are up, just beautiful, absolutely beautiful expression. So what is it like to think like a guardian? Well, I think that when a guardian has a thought that, as Mel would say, is less than, they catch it right away and they redirect the energy to something that they choose to manifest. How many times have you gone to manifest something and it manifests completely different? It's because the thoughts that you're not aware of are actually manifesting what you received, right? So instead of saying, I'll give you an example. I was on my way to the airport and there was a storm brewing. I was like, oh my God, I hope that plane isn't going to be late. Oh my God, I hope I don't get stuck on a layover. All these thoughts, and I was just like slapping myself going, I can't believe this. I know better. But it's just something that happens, right? So I redirected my thoughts to picturing and imagining and visualizing myself on that flight. And it was going to have a nice, peaceful, easy flight. I did once I got on the plane. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful. But that's just one example of how our thoughts work against us. And sometimes you can get caught up in these thought streams where you're actually feeding more and more energy into the fear of something that might happen instead of saying, wait a minute, what is this thought stream doing? What am I manifesting here? Right? So what I do is I do this 6-minute checkup. We did it in one of the A&R modules that we did. And it's just like what I used to do is every 6 minutes I'd set a timer because I would forget. I wasn't very mindful. I would set a timer and I would write the things that were moving through my head. Wow. Talk about awareness of what's running through your head. If you ever do that and write it down and then go back and look at it maybe a week later, wow, what was my mind full of? It wasn't full of things that I wanted to manifest. But then you can take and you can look and say, oh, that's why that manifests, because back then I was thinking about this, right? So thinking like a guardian in my mind is redirecting the energy to what you choose to manifest rather than what you don't want to manifest.
And when you write it down, I found out a long time ago that if I have these thoughts and I write it down, it's like it takes it out of my consciousness and I don't have to think about it because now it's down on paper. And you can burn the paper if you want, but that way I don't have it. Because like at the airport, you could be having these thoughts and then pretty soon someone says something and the thoughts are coming out your mouth. So now you've added not only the thought projection, but the sound tones in order to bring into manifestation really what you don't want. And so along with changing the thoughts, it might be helpful too to add the words to it that everything is going to be in divine right order. Everything is going to go smoothly and harmoniously. I'm going to make every connection today on this flight. My baggage is going to go through unscathed. Everything is perfect. And then you're setting up your whole trip.
So I have another little story if I could share. And this was in trust because I wasn't very mindful. And I was unable to lift my luggage because I hurt my shoulder. So when it was offered to me that they would take my baggage at the gate and they would check it for me at no charge, I was like, yeah, cool. So I took my laptop out, but I left something very important in there, which was my identification and all my cash. And they took the bag away, and I went up and went, okay, I wasn't very mindful. And they said, no, you cannot have your bag back. We're getting ready to board the flight. So this is another time where I was like, oh, my God. What if somebody finds my wallet? Oh my God, what if they get my credit cards? What if they find my bank card? What will my husband say? And then I thought, I have to get to the hotel instead of doing what I want to do is relax. I'm going to have to call all the credit card companies. And I got caught in this thought stream. And I stopped myself and I went, no, I'm going to call in my BUD team. So I did the technique at the airport that we all know that you call in your BUD team. And they showed me an image of my suitcase, and they were all sitting around it. And I was like, got it. So I just let it go. I didn't think about it at all. And then I got on the flight, and I was almost turning. I was like, oh, my God, I wonder if it's still there. And again, they show me the image of them sitting around my luggage. I was like, okay. So my friend Terry Sheely picks me up at the airport. The first thing I do is what? I run to my bag to check and see if it's there. But you know what? It was there. Everything was intact. Not one thing was touched. Because I even had a little note to myself of something that I wanted to put into this module. And that little piece of paper was still there, stuck on there. And I was like, that was a huge lesson in trust and learning how to direct my energies appropriately to what I wanted to manifest, right? And so one of the gifts that I had in a dream state that's helped me with my thoughts is that if you think about every time you have a thought, you step, right? So you want to step forward with your thoughts, right? Every once in a while you step off a little bit and you step back. But what they showed me was that it would light up a color. If I had a good thought, it would light up one color. If I had another thought, it would light up another color. And then I would experience what that thought was. So if I had a good thought, I had a good experience in the dream. And then, I went into another vignette and I step again and there's not a very good thought. And I had a really interesting dream that was not as fun. So basically what we're doing is when we want to learn how to think like a guardian, because we run into our thoughts all the time. Every single step that I take, that Mel takes, that you take, that anybody on this planet takes, you're creating your reality, you're building your bridge, and you are walking into your thoughts. That's just something that helped me a whole lot get a handle on my thoughts.
So go ahead and close your eyes for a moment. And remember that pillar. And as you breathe, expand into the pillar. And sense the frequencies of a guardian. All the guardians are you at that level. So using the pillar as a vehicle, just imagine that you are expanding into one of your higher aspects of self. And expand your shields, expand your hands and your feet and your body to sensing what that guardian energy is. Whatever you can conceive of, whatever it means to you at this moment of time. And sense, feel what guardian energy is. Because as you sense, feel, that is the frequency that propels the thoughts and allows you to link in the sense, feel to the thought process, so that as you think as like a guardian, you also are sensing and feeling, because it's not just mental body, it's the totality of yourself. And as consciousness works in your structure. So all the structures we are working with and all the energy that we are working with are fully alive and conscious and represent a part of the consciousness of God. And this is a pictorial representation of all the elements that comprise you as a structure. And remember, your structure is consciousness, and consciousness is in the structure. So go ahead and send your consciousness, that spark, into the code here, the Alareya Rashatan, and expand and allow yourself to touch the face of God's source. And it represents a safe space called the Maya-san. And Pammy will just tell you a bit about her experience of a Maya-san.
I will.
Yes. She didn't know that. That was kind of something that just came to ask her to do.
Kind of got put on the spot there.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put into words, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a feeling. It's more of just knowing that, every morning when I get up, I connect with the Alluri Rashatan. Every night before I go to bed, I connect with the Alluri Rashatan, and I send my frequencies down to a Maya-san. And, I just hang out there.
Some may not know what a Maya-san is.
Oh.
The Reader's Digest condensed version.
Yeah. Okay, so a Maya-san is a place that exists in a place called Aurora Earth, where on a planetary level, there's a place called Lake Mayaka, where we go and we connect there. And it's a safe place for us to go if anything ever happens on a planetary level. If you've connected with the Alluri Rashatan and you've sent your consciousness down to a Maya-san, you've made that connection. So if anything happens, as Mel said, if you have the consciousness of that area in your fields and shields, you will be in that area when the time comes, if the time comes.
And you can connect with the code right now and just know that yourself knows the way to a Maya-san, and breathe in the code and you as the code, and just send you and the code down to a place called a Maya-san.
And feel all the orbs swirling around you. Big ones, little ones, grand size orbs just swirling. all around you. Just feel the energies and the frequencies, how they tickle your consciousness and they play with you. And bring those back up into your Azure. And exhale them in a 12-point exhale from your Azure. And go into the dream state.
And now what we're going to do is take a 6-minute break. So go ahead and take a restroom break, take a water break, and we'll see you back here in around 6 minutes. Get into that God consciousness, there is an expansion and a feeling of no time, no space, so you really do lose track of time. And you'll find that as you expand and you get into that God space, that time will have a whole different meaning for you. You ready? Well, welcome back from the break. And so we want to start into a different level of consciousness called code consciousness.
The consciousness of the codes.
Our code beings of consciousness.
So when you see these amazing codes, it's always good to remember and recognize that they are consciousness and that they are alive. It's really easy when you have a piece of paper to just think of it as a thing, to look at it as a two-dimensional image. But it's actually a huge consciousness, and this is how we perceive it here in 3D, right? But each and every one of these has a consciousness in and of itself that's unique, that is so willing to co-create and play with us. Okay, so what we have here are the high Vecca codes. These were introduced back in the Introduction to Kathara Level 2 in the Kathara 1 manual. So we're going to go through these a little bit, and then I'll show you something that I used to do at home to bring in more of that consciousness, more of the fun aspect, because I really believe the more fun you have, the more frequency you can bring in, right? So we'll move on here to our Biveka code, and this is called Maharata Mueva. It's the Mueva code, okay? And this corresponds to your right foot when we do an induction, right? And this is the Triveka code, or the Hasha, and its tone is Ki Rashe Hasha, and it corresponds to the left foot. Okay, so we've got the right foot and the left foot. And now we have the Kuveka code called the Shardeza, and its sound tone is Ku Shardeza. This corresponds to the Azure. This is the one I was also saying helps to release Jehovian seals in the body. Always a good thing to do. And then we have the Daveka code, or Drueja, and it's Da Drueja for the sound tone. And this corresponds to the Iyumbi point. And then we have the Ra Eka. It's called the Eka. Its sound tone is Ra Eka. And it corresponds to the tailbone. And then we have the Crown Veka, the Akasha. And its sound tone is Uma E Treina E Ekasha. And that corresponds to the third eye. So, what we're going to do, if you're game, now we don't have codes for you all to put on, so you're going to have to use your powers of imagination, your powers of creative visualization, and being able to direct the energies appropriately. And we're going to, as Mel is going to show us how it's saying, but we're going to do the right foot, the left foot through visualization, the Azure, the Iyumbi, the tailbone, and then the third eye.
But one thing you want to have within your consciousness, as you connect with the consciousness, is that you're connecting with your Christic consciousness through the Biveka code. You're connecting with the Kirashe, the light fields, with the Triveka code. And this is the first level, the second level, and the third levels of the sound fields. And so when you have like Mueva, Maharata, D12, right? Maharata Mueva, Ki Rashe Hasha. So the name of that code is Hasha, but Ki Rashe shows you that it's connecting with the Ki Rashe, which is your light fields. Ku Shardeja, Da, Shudeja, Ra, Eka, so Ku, Da, Ra, the Kundere. So it's that. So that's the consciousness that you are connecting with, is all the way up from your Christic consciousness all the way back to the sound fields of Source. And then, of course, the Ekasha, which it's the Ek and the Ka and the Sha up near sound tones of an area up near Source. So we're going to go through the universal song for the Vecca code song, and Asan, speaker 2, had said that you go up and down in fourths. And what's a fourth? Well, how I remembered it is the song is "Here Comes the Bride." So here comes the bride, dun dun. So that's how I always remember how to get to that fourth. So it would, Maharata Mueva, Kira Hasha, Kushar Deja Dadru Eja Ra Eka. Okay, and that's going up and down by fourths. Maharata.
She's going to lead us through it, just so you know.
Okay, so go ahead and follow me, and then we'll speed up. Maharata Mueva, Kira Hasha, Kushar Deja Dadu Asia Raeka. And then Umae Treinae Ekasha. Okay, so before we start this, remember that pillar of sound light within you. Okay, that goes all the way up to God's source, all the way down to Earth the core,
Maharic shield,
and down through the Maharic, down to the Maharic shield, and but it's the pillar that goes all the way up. And because we want to ground ourselves also into the here and now, and so feel that consciousness of the Maharata, which is your Maharic shield consciousness. You want to feel the consciousness of the light fields and the sound fields, because that's what you're bringing in when you're singing the high Vecca song, along with activating those parts within your shields that because what they are keys to some of the gates. So, and when we talk about going through gates, it's not only external, but it's internal, because we have whatever on the outside is also within us. Okay, so we have those gates on the inside, and by opening those gates, it allows us to expand more into the fullness of our greatness, of that divine self. So I'll start that a little bit lower. Okay. Maharata Mueva, Kira Hasha, Kushar Deja Dadru Asia Ra Eka, Umae Treinae Ekasha. Okay, and that started, and we usually start with the Akasha, but I wanted you to get the sound tones. So let's start with the Uma Etre Ina E Akasha, go through the high Vecca song, and then finish with the Uma Etre Ina E. Okay. Uma Etre Ina E Akasha. Uma Etre Ina E Akasha. One more time. Uma Maharata Mueva, Kira Hasha, Kushar Deja Dadru Asia Raheka, Umae Treinahe Ekasha. I think I led you astray a little bit. I lost my ratio there. Maharata Mueva, Kira Hasha, Kushar Deja Dadru Asia Ra Eka, Umae Treinae Ekasha, Umae Treinae And whenever you sing the names or say the names of the codes, what you are doing is actually saying hello consciousness of the da, of the Kiva Hasha, the Da Drureja. You're saying hello, and you're knocking on the door and bringing more of that, of the frequency of that code into your own shields.
And so we have the IHEA code where we do the magic words of co-creation, which is in your handout. If you want to get your handout out, think about something that you would like to co-create. Does everybody have that? It's towards the back. Thank you. It's page 9. You do serious?
I'll hold it while you do it. This is just the top 3, right? Just what we were doing today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those Suriyas are interesting because Suriyas are a series of movements we were given in the Dance 4 program. I should put it. Suriyas were a series of movements we were given in the Dance 4 program for sculpting consciousness. We were to sculpt because when you're moving and you're singing, you're also building sound pillars, essentially sound-like pillars, and they're called seers. And they're pillars of consciousness, which means you can actually build the pillars and then gently come out from under them and use them as a meditation spot. And you have, and these are movement seer as opposed to sitting down and that's a singing, which is then considered a sitting seer. And but this was the first time when Speaker One actually talked about sculpting consciousness, that using movement and sound you could actually create. So as we sing this, you can, what do you want to co-create in your life, and holding that picture in your mind as you expand into that pillar of sound light and singing the magic words of co-creation, and also if you want to doing the movements. And the movements also have to do with activating parts of your consciousness fields that allow you to travel through time-space. 12 rounds of the magic words.
Is there anybody else that knows the seers?
Terry does, doesn't she?
Suriyas?
The Suriyas?
All right. That's okay.
I will try. I haven't done it for a while. So.
Does everybody have their page?
Yep. Okay.
Shara Dikeshe Tahamira Pranachi Manu Ekle Dakuki Mahayana Treyare Mamika Ihabura Haramaya Manaki Umae Treina Ekasha Ireshara Dikeshe Tahamira Pranachi Manu Ekre Dakuki Mahayana Treyari Mamekari Habura Haramaya Manaki Umae Treina Ekasha Ireshara Dikeshe Tahamira Pranachi Manu Ekre Dakuki Mahayana Treyari Mamekari Habura Haramaya Manaki Umae Treina Ekasha Ireshara Dikeshe Tahamira Pranachi Manu Ekre Dakuki Mahayana Treyari Mamekari Habura Haramaya Manaki Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki. Umae treina e akasha. Ire shara dikeshe talamira pranachi. Manu ekre dakuki. Mahayana treyari. Manekai habura. Haramaya manaki.
And then we seal the seer by saying, Ashalum Ta, Akasha Da.
Ashalum ta, akasha da.
Ashalum Ta, Akasha Da. Ashalum Ta, Akasha Da. That seals the pillar so that you can gently step out from underneath.
So think about what you just created. You've created a pillar of sound, which you just sculpted with your intention. And as Mel said, you want to gently step aside and allow it to stay there and manifest. So I'm going to ask mine to move a little bit to the side so I don't walk into it all the time. Do you want to do that or do you want me? I'll go do it. And so if you want to go to your page for the Sonic Kemelohati, we are going to do that next. And when we do the Sonic Kemelohati, we use the Ligeia code and the Ur-Manu, which is Veka code 7 and 10. And we're waiting. Still waiting.
Well, it's not in a slideshow view, so
All right.
Yeah, you gotta get, but the fire's coming. I don't want to get up and start meditating.
Just a little technical difficulties. Okay, so
not difficulties. Technical
challenges.
Yes.
Nothing that we couldn't handle.
Yes.
Technical adventures, technical opportunities. Okay, so this is the Ligeia code on the left, and this is the Ora Manu on the right. And we use these two codes when we sing the Sonic Kemelohati to bring in the frequencies. Okay, so I know that some of you will need to look at your sheets, and that's fine. You can just Inhale, take a moment and inhale and bring the combination of the two consciousness codes into your fields. And Mel will lead us through the sonic Kamalohati.
Once was a night of a faraway dream. Once was a night when the candle fire burned. Once was a night when the nightingales sing. Once was a night worlds were born. Once on a day when the sun shone its brightest. Once on a day when the breezes rose high. Once on a day when the rivers flowed with sorrow. Once on this day worlds were gone. But today, in this moment, in the heat of the fire, brings a long aching dream of life returned from the fire. Oh, come here, new life reborn. Come, come, rise from the waters. Come, come, rise from the sea. Reach forth, heart of the lion, bringing out from the ancient land of destiny. Once were a peoples pure and of innocence. Once were a peoples loving and free. Once were a peoples alive with eternal life. Once were a peoples a Highlayan victory. Once came a wind dark and cold from the lowly places. Once came a spawn of the dark fallen sun. Once when the rays of the demons spread suffering, once stricken the Highlayan were done. But today, in this moment, in the warmth of the sun, rise along, hidden people of the gold and silver one. Oh, come near, Highlayan reborn. Come, come, rise from the dreamlands. Come, come, rise from memory. Reach forth, children of the Highlayan. Camelot awaits thee where the golden portals call. Now in a dream all the worlds that had gone away. Now in a dream walking forth to the dawn. Here in this dream reaching forth to the universe and call to the port of your home. Come, come, open the doorways. Come, come, let us be free. Here now we give all our life to thee, the home and so long for, sacred Kamalohati.
Somebody call me? No?
No, some of them want to do the activation.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Eta hey eta le hashadema. Eta hey eta hima hashadei. Tres hane tu eta de amorea. Dunethru marahena ishura Kamalohati. And close your eyes and just imagine all those locks and doorways and portals inside you, in your shields, are now coming awake. Imagine the doors being open, anything chained being unchained, and expand in that pillar of consciousness within and as the pillar. And become the gateway, the portal open to all the source consciousness that can flow in now.
And just a little side note, when we sing about the El Hayale, we are talking about a group of Iyani that came back into incarnation to keep the Grail races alive. So that's what we are here, right? We are the El Hayale. And when we talk about Camelot, it's a special temple. And they call it Camelot there, we call it Camelot. So just wanted you to have a little understanding. And when we talk about the gold and silver one, we're talking about the D8 and the pale silver and the pale yellow gold frequencies. Okay? Okay, now this is the Rushea, and we have another little flame there. So I'll walk over there and take care of that. And what this is Vecca Code 8 and Vecca Code 11. The Rushea is Vecca Code 8. The Thunamanu is Vecca Code 11. And together they create the monadic code. Okay, and what that basically was, it was a lot of things that we're not going to go into right now, but if you're interested in it, was in Dance for Freedom, which was France 2002 workshop. But basically it was to initiate the activation of Vecca Code 12. Okay, so just wanted to give you that information. So just take a moment, connect with the consciousness of the Rushea.
And feel how it feels. Sense, feel that feeling of the consciousness. Feel the aliveness.
Right. Feel the joy. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we'll move on to the next one, which is the Shaheya code. Absolutely beautiful, amazing rendition of Merkaba. So just take a moment and breathe the frequencies in of the Shaheya, which is a prerequisite to lotus arc breathing. So for those of you who know what that is, feel free to activate your lotus arcs. Just breathe them in, 6-point breathing. Feel the arcs going up and down, in and out, breathing in the frequencies of the Shaheya. For those of you who don't know what lotus breathing is, it was brought in 2003 in Paxos at the 100-year electrical peak called Hitharo. And you can see it there. You can also see it in Kathara 2-3, where we activate lotus breathing as well to bring in the Kathara 2-3 frequencies. And now we have the Thunamanu. This was a blood crystal code. When this originally came out, this was for clearing fluids. Not only, water and fluids like that, but also fluids in the body. And there's a specific way that this is done as well. This is in the Dance for Freedom program. You work it with the Akasha together. But for our purposes here, we're just going to take a moment and connect with the consciousness of the code and bring in the frequencies.
And if you happen to have this in your set of Vecca codes, you can actually use it at home to put like your water pitcher on.
Okay, feel that moving through your bloodstream? Exactly. And so we'll move on. I actually love this one because that center point is a question mark, right? You can put what you choose to manifest in the center there, and it will amplify. This particular consciousness will amplify whatever you put in the center of the code. So we have the Akasha in the center of the code. All right, so just take a moment and breathe in the frequencies of the Akasha and feel it amplifying throughout your fields. Okay, everybody feel that? So what I have out here, you can't see what I have up front, so I'm going to explain it to you simply because of the dynamics of the way the room is set up. But several people asked me how I worked with the Vecca codes. Well, I like to have fun when I play with the consciousness. So much to my husband's dismay in 2006, I put all my Vecca codes around the bed so that every time I went to bed, I would walk in my room and I would follow what I called the Vecca code road. So I would start with the Bivecca, knowing that that's the gateway through to the higher levels of consciousness. You can't work with the other Vecca codes unless you embody the Bivecca. So I start with the Bivecca. So I like Maharata Mueva, and I move up to this one, Kira Shehasha. And I know that the Bivecca corresponds to my right foot, and the Kira She corresponds to my left foot. So, you can kind of do like a little hopscotch, which is what I usually do. So it's Maharata Mueva and the Kira Shehasha, and I come to the Kuveka knowing that that is for my Azure, also knowing that that helps to release the Jehovian seals in the body. Remember, at the speed of thought, you can bring in these frequencies once you know what you're working with. And then I come to the Dadrueja, and I remember that that's at my Iumbi, and I breathe the frequencies up. And then the tailbone, the Ra Eka. And then, of course, the Akasha, the sixth chakra, the third eye. Then we come to the Ahea, and when I get to the Ahea, that's when I do the magic words of co-creation. So the whole time I'm thinking, I'm embodying all these frequencies, and I get up to number 6, I'm like, okay, now I can really work to embody them, because now I'm going to manifest that I'm embodying them, so I do that. And then I hop over to these two, which is the Liheya and the Ora Manu, and I sing the sonic Kemelohati. And then I hop up to these two, knowing that the Rusheya and the Thunamanu represents the monadic code, so I bring those frequencies into my body. And then I go with the Shaheya and I activate my lotus arcs. And then I have this one that I like that has the blank center, and I put everything that I've just gone through into the center there. And then I come to the Akasha. That's how I work with the frequencies, and you can do that, and it looks something like this. This is for comedy relief. So, Maharata Mueva Kira Shekasa Kusha Deza Dadrueja Rateka
All right.
And then I'll do the sonic Kemalati, and I'm not going to do that for that. And then the monadic code, and so forth. And what I would say is that for a long time I wouldn't do it, and I certainly don't like to sing in public. But what I would say is, we sound beautiful to them, right? No matter what we sound like, or what I sound like to you, or what you sound like to me, we sound beautiful to them because they have no judgment.
Right. But also, your whole beingness has a sound tone to it. So as you get more clear and you're using these, you're actually emitting these pure and emanating these pure sound tones that are part of the whole orchestra of Source. And it was neat when she was doing the magic songs of co-creation, because it reminded me again, those bring down the primal currents, and those are all parts of our aspects of self. All those sound tones are bringing in the specific consciousness of the cosmic Kathara grid, and all the way up to where it connects up to God's source. So you're actually bringing down all that frequency. Again, you're knocking at the door and saying, "Come play with me."
So when you go home tonight or after the workshop, and this is the way that I chose to co-create with them, I invite you to come up with a way to play with the consciousness of the codes. It doesn't always have to be the Vecas. You can do the archaic codes, the heliotography codes, any consciousness that you're drawn to work with, and just play with them. Because when you play, you experience joy in your body, right? And when you can't experience joy and hate at the same time. So I totally would go with the joy one.
And you could actually do it sort of like deal yourself a card that day, or pick a card, any card, and essentially play or be a companion with the consciousness of that specific code that day. And you can open yourself to manifesting divine right order in whatever way it appears through the consciousness, your co-creation with the consciousness of that code being.
And so after you've done all this, now it's time to sit within the stillness. So this is my choice. to co-create with and manifest. Remember, I was working with manifesting, bringing in all these frequencies, and then I amplified the manifestation by doing the magic words of co-creation and by adding it into the Akasha Ora Manu there, or the Ora Manu without the Akasha. And then I like to play with this one. This is called the Veka Mahadra. Okay? And what this is so many levels of consciousness, but it contains all the Veka codes within it. So it's a consolidated Veka code induction. So I've just gone through this whole process. And then what I like to do, and I invite you to do this, is to send a spark of consciousness into the center of the Veka Mahadra. And feel the frequencies within you, around you. Feel them tickling your consciousness, inviting you to co-create. And maybe you just want to co-create stillness. Okay? And what you can do is you can expand your consciousness out along the lines of the consciousness of the code. And you can just expand further and further and further and reach out and touch the consciousness of Source.
What I like about this one is that it actually allows release of the Eucharista Amareya cosmic Christ flame. So when you use this code and you send your consciousness, you're actually inviting that cosmic Christ flame to come and co-create with you. And to be in that flame and the flame as you.
Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So, after you work with the Veka codes and you go through the Cathara 2-3 program, you can use this as a consolidated Veka code induction. And it activates a lot more than the Veka codes because there's a lot more frequency in there. Okay? So, go ahead.
You can use your consciousness and begin to make shifts in your daily life right now that will actually help the planetary shifts to happen. We have the ability to be a creative force in our own lives and influence what is happening on the planet. We are so powerful that we can actually make planetary shifts happen. So with that in mind, when you're listening to the news or you're watching the news, again, where are your thoughts? Are you saying, oh my God, look what's happening in that country? Oh, I wonder, and you start, because there is a consciousness on the planet that it's very easy to find yourself in without knowing how you got there. And if you align your consciousness with the oh my God type, oh my God, why is that happening? Or oh my God, look at what's happening, as opposed to oh my God, come be with me as one now. There's a whole bitty difference. So really, it's back to mindfulness and thought intention, knowing that you are powerful beings, and what do you choose to create every day? Own the stuff that you don't like. There's all parts of us and things we do that we don't like. And part of consciousness, part of spiritual maturity is to take responsibility and accountability for what you've created. So, okay, I've done that. Own it. Yeah, I did that. And then you have the opportunity to transmute that, and then to let it go, and then to recreate a new image. I had a friend that I met with last weekend, and she had something happen in her life that she wasn't too happy about. She felt that there was something she needed to do, and she didn't do it. And I told her back about 20 years ago, back in about 1990, I had another friend that had a son, and they had some words with each other, and she felt like it really didn't play out like she had wanted to. And so I said, okay, if time and space, if there is really no time and space, then all you have to do is in your mind go and bring that image out of the archives and recreate it. So how would you have liked to have it happen? So go to that time space and recreate the play. Recreate it as you would have liked it to have happened. And what that will do will heal the energy around it. And if you do it with someone else, you may have two different ways of visualizing or imaging, because you're imaging in the concept of God. So each of you as a part of God's source is using your own images that mean something different to your own shields. But go to that time space, recreate it, redo the play, and have the outcome as you would have liked to have had it happen. And that will instantly change. You will now align that now point, that point in that time space, to Adashi turnaround, to the Ascension spiral, the crystal spiral you're on now. Does that make sense to you? Okay.
You can also think of it as healing, releasing, and transmuting.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make little acronyms for myself. So heal, release, transmute. If something comes into my thought process that I don't want, first thing I say is heal, release, transmute. Of course, you own it, obviously, by recognizing that it's there and wanting to heal, release, and transmute it.
And as part of this, again, it's in order to do this, it's when you speak, what are the words that you're creating? So when you recreate a new image, make sure you don't decreate it. And so in the moment of if those lesson thoughts is go back to the focus of the divine self, of the divine right order that you just created. Mm-hmm. Christic consciousness or non-Christic consciousness. That's all about choices. Speaker 3 said that choice is just one step away. You go down the pathway and you make those lateral choices, or sometimes even backward choices. And the whole thing is to get back on. And it takes focus. Do we let ourselves get distracted? Or do we keep our that inner focus on what we want to do, on where we want to go, who we want to be, which in my opinion is, for myself, is the greatest self, is to remember who I really am in all my totality and all my glory and all my sound, light, sparklies, everything. But it takes courage. I mean, it can feel. We're feeling beings, and we still have some distortions, and so we'll get energy and frequency that comes in that causes us to feel that fear, that causes us to feel less than, and the whole thing is then to go ahead anyway. I used to be scared of water. There was something about that when I got in water, I felt claustrophobic. And so I determined that when you let yourself get into fear, or if there's something fear, it becomes really bigger because you're creating it to be something big. And that I could either walk through the fear and reclaim my divine self, or I could remain crippled by it. And so what I did was, I think it was in St. Kitts, we went snorkeling. And so I got into the water with a snorkel, and I put my head down and I started hyperventilating, and I was just telling myself, okay, breathe. And it took me about half an hour, and finally I was able to put my head in the water and say, oh wow, look at all this life down here. So the whole thing is to, if something comes up that you fear, or something that comes up that you think is a challenge and too big to handle, step back, take a breath, and understand that you have the power to walk through anything. And take that step, and you'll find it was just stuck energy. It was just stuck energy. And that's where you as a conscious being can become, as you expand within the consciousness of your pillar, become God consciousness, this I am. Remind yourself that the Christ eternal here endures. That nothing, that no thing and nobody can overcome you, because you are God's self, this I am. And that's where the commitment. Are you committed to that? Are you committed to remaining on the path of Christic consciousness? And are you willing to every day to slow down, to spend time with your eternal self, to breathe in, to start looking at life. When you go out tonight, the wall is consciousness. The chair is consciousness. I remember someone telling me that inanimate objects didn't have an aura, but yet when I saw things, I could see this energy about it. And so when I came into Kalantic science and found out that everything is conscious and everything is consciousness, because it's all consciousness. Everything, consciousness has a construct and structure has consciousness. So it's all the same. And so start looking at the curtains are consciousness, the bed's consciousness. Hello, bed. Thank you so much for supporting me at night. Start having that gratitude. Start having that and appreciate. And you'll find that the joy is there all along because everything wants to co-create with you. Because all is consciousness. Every day, you have the choice of reaching for the stars or letting yourself be caught down. So go ahead and reach for the stars. Those moment-by-moment decisions either support you or take you away from your Christic alignment. So reach for the stars. And that's because that's where we're going. We're star beings. We're Christic cells. And we're going on the path of Adashi return. Isn't this great? The consciousness is the stuff that you surround yourself with. Take a look at your house. How long have you had things on your refrigerator? What is the consciousness of the chair? Have you bought, I, along with probably a lot of you, have bought things at secondhand shops, at antique shops. What is the consciousness that's being held within that? Have you gone around and felt the consciousness of everything, the chairs, the rugs, the walls, the pictures, the fireplace, to find out whether it would like the frequency of the Christic alignment? And offer that. And you can offer that individually, or you can do it by breathing in the codes, or asking its permission, breathing in the codes, and send the codes down to God, to Earth Core. Breathe it in again, send any of the codes up to God's source, and then take a code and breathe it in and surround not just yourself, but your whole place, so that it can start working the codes and of the consciousness. The codes can actually start co-creating with the consciousness of what's around you. And you want to put the codes that say into shiny places, because shiny places like mirrors and things can actually act as portals because of the refraction of light. And pictures. I went home one time and I decided to look at my pictures. And lo and behold, this one, what I thought was a beautiful picture, I had called it the unfolding. Had been done by a friend of mine from a long time ago. And all of a sudden it looked like a fish with these bulbous eyes were coming out. And I looked at it and said, oh my God. So I started, oh my God, Source Unisi, yes. And so I took it and I tore up the picture and put it in the trash. The thing is that whether it's music, whether it's pictures, that everything we create, in order to bring through that creation, we have to align ourselves with a level of consciousness or a dimension of consciousness. And so wherever our consciousness is at that moment of creation is what you have just built a portal to or a connection, a bridge to. So pictures can actually be like the front cover of Voyagers. She brought that through on a six-dimensional level of frequency.
She meaning speaker one. Speaker one, thank you.
And so look at what you have in your house, and if a lot of times inherently, because you might have put it away, you might have put some stuff away in a closet or storage, and because it might be old energy, it might be connecting you to a different rotation of particle spin. And do you really want that in your space?
Right.
Because it makes it harder when you have dueling energies in your home space. So take a look and feel that.
You can think of it as you walk through your home, that, as Mel was saying, everything has a core energetic signature. It's called an encryption. So as you walk through your home, maybe close your eyes and start to sense and feel what that encryption is. Does it resonate with you? If it doesn't resonate with you, give it to someone who resonates with it, do whatever you want to do with it, and start filling your space with things that you resonate with, things that are going to remind you of what your goal in life is. You know, personally, I want to embody, I choose to embody my ultimate self, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so if I have something in my home that is I am not resonating with, I am going to give it a new home,
Yeah.
whatever that is.
And there may be some of you that say, well, let me put frequency in it. Ask its permission first. It's a consciousness. And so let's say you have a vase and you would like to put your hands on and send Chris frequency. Ask its permission. Maybe it doesn't want. Maybe it's supposed to go to somewhere else that would support someone that is taking a different path.
So, Source gave you the power. Power you have the right to use. And why is that? Because we are faces of the consciousness of Source. And Source is such a loving being that it gave the ability to the beings that it created to have that power to create for themselves. And the only thing that we are asked, and not that this is something that we absolutely have to do because we have free will choice, is that it be used in the name of the Christ. When you are talking about stepping into the next level of consciousness, into a higher level of consciousness, this is something that I personally choose to do, is the power that has been given to me by Source is to use it in the name of the Christ. And how do we do that? We work with embodying the attitudes and the responsibilities of mastery. I remember once I was speaking to Speaker 3, and I basically said, hey, Mac, what would happen if we never had the ANRs? Boy, the answer was like, we would be in a lot of trouble. Because the ANRs are a way of being, a way of living, a way of understanding energetic communication with another being. And it's actually one of the ways that I used to work with them is I'd go to bed at night and, well, perhaps I hadn't had the best conversation with somebody, and I knew that I could have done better. And I would ask in my dream state to be shown how I could have been a better person, how I could have been more Christic in my response. And this is one way that it began working with me, was in the dream state. And then I started having it in my face. My daughter would say something like, well, that wasn't very Christic now, was it? Well, smack. And I'd have to step back and go, no, it was not. You're right. Thank you for calling me on that. And I'd have to go back to my room, into my own little space, and go, how could I have done that better? Because it was recognized by somebody outside of me who was my symbol to tell me I wasn't embodying that ANR. So anyway, use it in the name of the Christ. Back to the hot tour. All right, so we are on Invincible. We talked about the Christ as being invincible. So again, I'm going to ask you to take a moment, look into the eyes of the Hatur. What is the consciousness behind those eyes telling you about your own invincibility? And just take a moment, think about it. Look into the loving eyes of the Hatur. And we'll say the command again. We'll say it 3 times. Again, it's Vyeyan Kumna, Eyahujwen Hatur. Okay?
Vyeyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur.
Vyeyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Vyeyan Kumna Eyahujwen Hatur. Take a moment and breathe that in. Remembering that the Hatur are the representatives from the hub domains in our Veka, the inner core domains. They bring those frequencies, and they are asking us to embody these qualities.
So go ahead and take your spark of consciousness, send it into the code, and expand on all levels. And then bring that
Expander gates.
code. Yes, expand gates.
Expander gates is what I like to call them. Because you expand your consciousness into the spanner gates.
And when you do this, you're actually using your mind to direct energy with reverence to Source and in divine right order. So when you direct it, like we're doing into the code and bringing that back and expanding it within you and as you become and are in that moment divine right order itself. Because when you are aligned with Source, you are divine right order.
If we open to our eternal self, we become directors of our own destiny. So just take a moment and think to yourself what it is that you choose to create as a co-creator of your own destiny. What is it that you want to experience? And remember that every thought you have creates. So you walk into your thoughts every day. Think about the expansion of consciousness. Think about being a spark of light within the great fields of the Age, the God Source Consciousness fields. And remember that you can co-create your own destiny, whatever that is.
And these are all LTRs that we have. A lot of them are in the songbooks. And what they help you do is actually direct your thoughts that actually help create biochemical changes in your body. It helps you, essentially by doing that, it helps you generate fearlessness as opposed to fear. And that all comes down to freedom, which is being able to fully embody that presence as you, the part of you that never left God. So all these LTRs, I am one with cosmic mind. I am a child of the original one. I am free. So all you have to do is command it here, and you'll progressively help the body to open the DNA template to allow it to come through. And you can command it here. You know, come, open the doorways. I am a child of the original one. So she talks about commanding being that loving intention. I am a child of the original one. Not I am a child of the original one, but I am one. I am this, I am. So the moment you say I am, you are stepping fully and into the power of your Christic consciousness. You are saying I am God's self, this I am. So say that. I am God's self, this I am.
I am God's self, this I am.
Say I am.
I am.
I am my God self.
I am my God self.
This I am.
This I am.
Ta Asian Dodore.
And as I decree it, so it is. So, Christic awareness. Christic guardians are fully aware of their fields. How many people can say that you're fully aware of your fields at all times? I can't. Not yet, exactly. They know themselves as orb, as cloud, as a consciousness that can move itself anywhere in time to understand anything. Sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? They know themselves as one with the universal, unified field. So they don't feel themselves as a three-dimensional being here thinking limited thoughts, right? They are very expanded. They are one with the universal, unified field all around them. And so once again, we come back to the Hathor, okay? We're talking about
enigmatic.
What does enigmatic mean to you? Does anybody want to share? Okay, I'll share.
We looked it up in the dictionary.
That's fine. It's one that I've had my own personal challenges with. You know, I'm okay with, being aware and loving and invincible and noble, but boy, I had a challenge with that enigmatic. And so I think what it means is mysterious. And it may mean something different to you, but that's what it means to me. So, beg your pardon? Discernment.
Discernment's a good one.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a really good one. Thank
Because
you
I
for
was
that.
thinking of that when I had that taxi driver and I chose just to be quiet and be presence itself so that you listen and you allow.
And what was said, for those of you who couldn't hear in the back, was she said discernment was how she feels enigmatic. Does anybody else want to share how they feel it?
I don't know. I kind of thought the other root word of it is
Enigma.
right, like enigmatic.
Mhm.
I kind of got a sense of magnetizing euphoria.
So up here in the front row, she feels that being enigmatic is magnetizing euphoria.
Like their presence.
The presence. Okay.
Like if you walk into a room,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's very noticeable, very present.
Okay, wonderful. So what we'll do is we'll take a couple of those ideas, and you may have ideas of your own that you didn't share, and that's absolutely fine.
When you said mysterious, I was thinking, we talk sometimes about God's source being the great mystery. And so maybe also, because I think we all come from, there's 12 subharmonics. I mean, there's a different level, I think, different levels of what each of something means, and we come into a greater sense. But when she said mysterious, I was just thinking about the great mystery, and how in the old days we would look for God's source, sort of like in mystery schools, because it was something we didn't have the tools to know God. And God was something out here, and so it was a mystery that we are now unfolding within, because we're learning that the mystery is within us, that we are God's source.
That's a good one.
I don't know what I said, but
Okay.
but that was.
All right.
I think it is like mysterious in the sense of awe-inspiring.
Awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Always something more to be discovered.
Oh, I like that.
Wonderful. So let's take some of those ideas and just, again, look into the consciousness of the Hatur and just feel what it's telling you about the word that we've been discovering, enigmatic. And we'll repeat the sound tones again.
Veyan
Kumna Eahujwen Hatur. Veyan Kumna Eahujwen Hatur. Veyan Kumna Eahujwen Hatur. Oops, that was a surprise. Okay, so this is my animation for explaining orb. So we breathe ourselves out into the wholeness of self. We transcend singular focus of identity, so we think of ourselves as a more multidimensional identity, which in truth we are. And we expand our mind and our consciousness to feel all that we are. Okay, so now you get to see the animation again. And so it's just expand your consciousness and your mind.
Take the breath into your Azare, and as you breathe it out, imagine that orb is expanding out you as orb. Because Ashana says when we go to other time space, that they see us as orb. And when we see the guardians, we see them as orb. So go ahead and expand again out into orbit and be as orb, and feel that consciousness of that orb. Sense, feel.
And feel what's inside your orb. Feel if there's any information waiting for you. Perhaps you need to expand out a little bit more to pick up that information than you're used to expanding.
And that's a great idea, because sometimes we forget that frequency is consciousness, and consciousness is frequency, and frequency is information.
So take a moment and see if there's any little information packets for you out in your orb. And breathe them back in. And just gently exhale. And this is from St. Kitts. I am orb, expand the definition of I am self to include. And we'll do this together. Okay? On 3.
One, two, three. I am the air around me. I am the atoms of my physical body. I am the ground beneath my feet. I am the clouds above my head. I am the sun. I am the wind. I am the stars. I am the rain. I am the light. I am the sound. I am the voice of the universal song. I am the whisper of the breath of God within me. I am this I am. I am this too.
I am this all. Just breathe it in. Just an example of a few things that you can find out in your orb.
Send your consciousness now into the code and bring that, expand out into the code and bring back the information and the consciousness and all the beauty of it into your physical self. And then expand out into your fields so that you're completely, the code's within you, but it completely surrounds you and adds you. The Unisci. We talk about the Unisci being the point of God's source. And that's what this code is, Unisci code. Honor and embrace the living God source within you fearlessly. Because when you're as orb, when you're as Unisci, when you're as any of the Christic code beings, you are aligned with God's source, which leaves no room for fear, and you become fearlessness itself. Stand in your power. Now this is what I want you to do, if you choose, is get a sense of you as your orb and go and embrace or meet the trees. These are the sequoias that are over 1,000 years old. And so go ahead and just think of communing with the consciousness of something here on this earth that is so ancient and has lessons.
That's still standing.
And that's still standing. And say hello to that consciousness. And just give it the gift of your presence and then come back into your body here. So just take a few seconds. Stand in your power. And get a sense when you're talking to the trees of feeling at your feet that there are roots that go down into the ground and have been here since ancient times, and that your arms and your hair and your head reaching up towards God's source, and you're standing tall and strong in your power. And the wind comes through your hair, through the leaves, through your arms, which are the limbs. And just breathe that in. And then come back here. The now point. I had a dream years ago, and I woke up, and in the dream state, just before I woke up, it was like I saw this clock. And I was asking, what time is it? And no matter whether I looked at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, it always said now. Yeah. If you focus on the past, where your focus is, where your energy goes. Do you really want to send your energy to the past or to the future? When the whole point is bringing everything together to the now point. That's where your power is in the now point. And that's what the power of now is. So what time is it? It's now.
And when you look at this image and you see the Ora Manu in there, it's magnifying and amplifying the power of the now moment.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, as the beginning, all things exist within the One, as expressions of the One, and all things return unto the One. The only difference being the quality of the experiential path by which one chooses to come home. So again, encryption, right? Most people know this is the Cathara grid, am I right? So it's the Christ code. It carries the base 12 encryption, and everything on the planet is based upon the Cathara grid.
And have you ever thought of starting at the 12th point and sending your frequency, sending your spark of consciousness into the Cathara point, and expanding yourself and feeling what is the Cathara consciousness at that point? And then go down to the 11th. What is, so you can explore not only what we would call the Cathara grid, but it's you're exploring. It's your core template. And so have you ever thought of what is the consciousness, and can I align myself with the consciousness of my own core template? Instead of being separate, thinking yourselves as separate and in pieces,
Right.
who are you as a totality of wholeness?
You can also use this image, if you choose in meditation, to recognize that these lines that exist between the Cathara centers represents lines of consciousness. Okay, so for instance, you have your mental body here, and you have your astral body here, so you could travel, you can bring information from the dream state through the astral into the mental body by clearing those consciousness lines. So they're tunnels, they're pathways for you to explore different levels of consciousness within your own template. So this whole presentation has been, throughout the years we've offered modules explaining how things are done, how to do them, where to do them, what colors to run, what frequencies to run, where to run them, and all that. Am I right? So what this presentation was more about was we're entering a state where, on the planetary level, where we personally believe, Mel and I, that we're being asked to become. We're not becoming anymore. We are being who we are. So becoming more of who we are, expanding into that knowing and feeling our own inner divine in all moments. And I know that's not easy to do all the time, but the more that we work through it, the more we work with the attitudes, the more we work with the responsibilities, the more we co-create with the consciousness of the codes and play and have fun, the more we can embody, the more we can become who we truly are, which are planetary stewards, the more we can fulfill our contract. Okay?
And at any moment in time, because we spend a lot of time in becoming, is take some time to be with your eternal self so that at that moment you are not only becoming, but you are being who you are, the greatest you can be at any moment of time. And when you align and with the greatest sense of being you can be at any moment of time, then that allows the gateways to open for more to come in.
Clearing space for source.
Clearing space for source.
Remember, what is your mind full of? Right? Mindful is a very interesting word because if you have a house and your house is full of all kinds of things. I have children, so my house is full of a lot. But if you have a house and you want to bring more stuff in, what do you have to do? You have to move stuff out in order to get newer stuff in. And that's kind of what we do with the freedom teachings is we clear our templates in order to bring in more of the higher consciousness. And again, as I said earlier, taking time and clearing space for source daily or however often you want to do it is a really, really good way of activating and stepping into that next level of consciousness that's available at each workshop that's offered by the speakers. Right? So again, it's all about being the teachings in every way, every day, as best we can. So we're on the last one of the Hatur, and this one is noble. So we're going to ask you to once again look into the eyes of the Hatur and just see what the consciousness behind those eyes would like to co-create with you about being noble. What does that mean to you? Feel the whiskers again. Feel the whiskers tickle your consciousness.
Because we've heard a lot, in histories and stuff in 3D history about the nobility. But really, what's the consciousness, the sense consciousness? Feel the consciousness behind the words. Feel what the consciousness behind the word of noble is. And share with us, what comes through for you, what you're nudged as to what really noble means.
I would say you represent the Asian R's. You are the living embodiment of it.
You are the living embodiment of the ANRs. Okay. That's good. Anyone else?
Possible frequency, highest possible attainment.
Highest possible frequency and highest possible attainment. Okay. Wonderful. Anyone else?
Strength or strong and
Strength. Okay.
and also responsible.
Responsible. Okay. Anyone else? See, there really is no wrong answer, right? Because it's what you're being shown by the consciousness of the hot tour.
There's a lot of
Dignity?
dignity,
Oh, yes.
especially as cats.
Yes.
Dependent on us, basically.
Yes. Okay. That's good. Anyone else? Okay.
I like what Tessie said about dignity, because Ash talks about dignity in one of the workshops, and it's like she says, no one can take away that dignity and approach life with dignity. And I think that when you see people out in the 3D world and you say, boy, that person has dignity, and what you're really saying sometimes, or from my perception, is that person has respect for the God source within them, and they're going to come from that space, and you carry yourself in a certain way that we name as dignity and as a noble bearing, because you respect yourself, you have self-love, self-respect, and then you bring that forth into life with you.
So we'll once again take all those concepts plus your own, and we'll repeat this 3 times. Okay? Ready?
Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur. Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur. Veyan kumna ehu juen hatur. Celebrate. Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. We continue onward, upward, homeward, Godward, fearless eternally. Celebrate. Sometimes we forget to do that, don't we? It's all part of that joy about celebrating ourselves at any moment of time, and celebrating ourselves because we've come this far. Celebrating ourselves because we are here generating power and being powerful in the name of the Christ. So this is our contract, to hold and run as much frequency as possible. And by doing that, we hold the door of consciousness open that all may enter.
All right, so there's a choice in the making. We've run over time. I think it's about probably 9:30. We can stay, if you so choose, and we can do the Crystal River, and we can create a Christ Star Amaria Crystal Temple together, or we can end the session. What is the vote here?
Crystal repair.
Is that okay? Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so can everybody read the screen? Okay. Now, I understand there's a couple of new people here. Have you been introduced to the Crystal River Prayer? Okay, what I would ask for you to do is to follow along as best you can. And then perhaps after class, we'll show you where you can find the Crystal River Prayer on the website. Okay? And then it's what we do. It's beautiful. You'll love it. Trust me.
We're actually calling on the aspects of us at all these different levels of consciousness to come in and co-create with us.
Right.
And then we actually call on the elements to come in, the not just the 3D elements, but actually the commands, like the flame command and the wind command to come in and co-create with us in a Christic manner. And then we allow anything that's not Christic to leave, and we're here as an offering of Christic frequency and a pillar of sound light to host out any frequencies here that want to.
Right.
And then we do it all in the name of the Christ and in reverence to divine right order.
And when we get to the part in part 2 where it says we now command with the entrusted powers of aurora light, we now invoke the eternal Christ, its Son, to co-create, release, and renew this place. We'll just say this place and we'll continue on so we don't drop the BPR. I know some people like to go this place and then they start thinking about all kinds of other things. I do it myself. But in a group environment, let's just maintain it, so we'll just go right through, okay? All right, so does anybody want to take a stretch break? No? You don't? You want to get up in your chair and stretch? No? Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're on the home stretch now. Yes. I can feel the frequencies of us all going to building that Christ our vehicle.
All right, so this is the Aquarian Crystal River Prayer and Invocation for Crystal River activation and amplification. All right, are we ready?
1, 2, 3.
Diva enture ista entao, rihavea un cristallo, iraho etena have, etutore in chahe, nuvoeto in taro, siva glene urtu in hale, dehi diva asafaso, enduetra donaqueri, dehi urto tradila, urantaro de hatur, cusa ego dureteta, enta un cristale, cusa ego dureteta aqueous, cusa ego dureteta aquafari, cusa ego dureteta aquari, cusa ego dureteta hatur, cusa ego dureteta adone, cusa ego dureteta iane, cusa ego dureteta iani mahahuete, cusa ego dureteta usha lezundu rosete, cusa ego dureteta mashaya hana aquian, cusa ego dureteta utorore. Bendi duro ameja utorore aquian. Bendi hale ishanua utorore aquian. Bendi rame rafa gentu utorore aquian. Bring forth now the crystal river of eternal first creation. Bring forth now the healing waters of the Idan Sumshadi. Bring forth now the gentle wind song of the sacred unison. Bring forth here the radiant starlight of the eternally starborn. Let the crystal river flow unto my doorstep. Let the crystal river cleanse and heal my soul. May the crystal river love song, all embracing, emerge now from my Christed crystal core to softly call me home. Diva enture ista endao, rihavea un cristallo. Diva enture ista endao, rihavea un cristallo. Diva enture ista endao, rihavea un cristallo. Ashalunta ekasha dur, ashalunta ekasha dur, ashalunta ekasha dur. Ready? Riavea un cristallo elementai and evocai. The crystal river elemental command invocation for Christiac sanctification and salvage right of reclamation. In the name of the Messiahana Council of Aquarion, in the name of the Melchizedek Cloister Emerald Order, Holy Order of the Unified Sacred House of One. In the name of the councils of Cristale, in the name of the councils of Crystal River, in the name of the councils of Aurora, we call upon the Christian powers of the Sha'e da Amur. We call upon the Christian powers of the Ja'et Edura. We call upon the Christian powers of the Aquel. We call upon the Christian powers of the Etalea Cristale. We call upon the Christian powers of the Ita or Chalet. We now command with the entrusted powers of Aurora Light. We now invoke the eternal Christ's Son to co-create, release, and renew this place. We now declare in eternal sanctification this place, this land, and all within into the Christian protection here in Set. That the spirit of Earth Sala rise, the power of Earth Sala heal, and the wisdom of Earth Sala here within preside. In the name of the eternal Christ of first creation, and by the divine vehicle of the Rihabea un Cristalo. In co-creative Christ embrace, with absolute humility, absolute love, and absolute forgiving, and only in absolute service to the eternal Christ and its ever-loving, healing devotion to all life everywhere, we banish now from this sacred place all that is unwilling to receive the absolute cleansing of the Cristale within the covenants of divine right order and divine right timing, as only eternal God Source can know. In loving Christian service, we offer release and host arrangement to all those present who are in need and seek to heal within the sacred cleansing fields of Earth Sala and the eternal divine flows of the Rihabea un Cristalo. In Christian reverence, joy, and gratitude for the unceasing love and mercy of the one source most divine, we end now and complete this Christian sanctification and salvage rite of reclamation. In the name of the one true source God eternal, in the name of the Christ divine, in the name of the Rihabea un Cristalo, in the name of the Mashaya Lana Council of Aquarian, in the name of the councils of Cristale, in the name of the councils of Crystal River, in the name of the councils of Aurora, in the name of the Melchizedek Cloister, Emerald Order, Holy Order of the Unified Sacred House of One, and in the name of the eternally Christian, I am this I am. Ta'esha into Doe, Ta'esha into Doe, Ta'esha into Doe. Sorry. So now we'll do 3 rounds of the Song of Aurora.
1, 2.
We'll start out slow and then we'll get fast.
Bitu et etaete, janateu etae. Bitu et etaete, ishanu enashale. Ishmatael entedurete, disala enteshadure. Sanuen le taluja eneutalei, nitaplen besunuake. Lava unishmatae, urtu entesheshali. Lava unishmatae, yeshnabeo ensadekali. Mita urdu eteshadae, nipake enteshalure. Desabae nuruja ente ishmanu.
built a sitting seer, a pillar where everybody sits. Ashalum ta akasha da. Let's seal it. Ashalum ta akasha da. Ashalum ta akasha da. Ashalum ta akasha da.
That was awesome.
And one of the things that's neat about when you work with consciousness is that wherever you go, that's where you are. And what I really like about the Mashayahana baptismal rite here is that we build crystal pillars. And it only takes a few seconds, really, to do it. Let's say 3 minutes. So on the bus, in the subway, in the park, in a boat. I can do it on a boat. I can do it on a goat. I can do it, That's the Mashayahanic level of Dr. Seuss, And so the thing is that what, people say, what can I do in service? But they don't have a lot of time. Well, this is a great way to have in your toolbox as an active tool of service, is wherever you go. Take a few minutes wherever you go, when you're here at your destination, when you're wherever you are, and do this, and then you're leaving a crystal temple.
With permission from the space.
With permission from the grid you're on and the space you're at. And if the space says yes, then what you're doing there is actually it's like a hosting spot, a hosting platform you're leaving for the indigos out there to find. That maybe there's no KS or anything living in the area. So how can they perhaps have a lift to help them to their next level? Is the Crystal Temple. So you can do it as a service. And like Pammy says, it's always good to, as part of the spiritual integrity, to always ask the consciousness of the grid you're on, or the consciousness of the subway seat I'm sitting on, or to ask permission and say, is this okay? Can I do this? And then you're co-creating with that portion of consciousness. You're creating with your level of the Mashayahana, which is your ascended master level, and you're creating with that level, with the consciousness, you're co-creating of that location, of that place, of that, I hate to use the word thing, but that...
Adashi at that level.
Yes, with that being. Thank you so much. With that being.
Okay. So we're going to repeat this together. Okay. On 3.
1, 2, 3. By the love of eternal Christ I am. By the truth of eternal Christ I stand. By the power of eternal Christ I fly. By the way of eternal Christ go I. By the grace of eternal Christ I now sanctify and renew this place. And decree this area and being as under the divine protectorate of the Mashayahana Master Council of Aquarian. In the name of the Crystal River Host and the eternal God Source of first eternal life creation. Ta'esha into Dore. Ta'esha into Dore. Ta'esha into Dore.
Okay, we've got one more thing to do. We are going to connect to Ameya-san through the Iluri Rashatan code. So how this is stated, can everybody see this? Yeah. Yes? No? If you can't see it, if you want to join in, come on up front. Okay, so it's pronounced Abreante, Esiwaru, Elesha en Saetavu, Dalantila, Ure Humka, Dae Shiwa, Ja Entu, Elise Ha. And so we'll say that 3 times together, and then we will inhale into our Ezere. We will send it down to Ameya-san. Let's feel the frequencies for a little bit there, and then we'll bring it up to our Ezere, and we'll exhale it out. Okay? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when we exhale out the Ezere, we're going to do it 12 points.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine it as being real shining, reflective, like a mirror. Mm-hmm. So it becomes like a mirror ball that has all the love consciousness of the Alareya Rashatani.
Okay. All right. Is everybody ready? Yeah. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Abreonte esiwaru Alesha en sa etavu, dalantila ore humka, da e shiwa, ja entu, alise ha. Abreonte esiwaru, Elesha en sa etavu, dalantila ore hunka, da e shiwa, ja entu, alise ha. Abreonte esiwaru, Elesha en sa etavu, dalantila ore hunka, da e shiwa, ja entu, alise ha.
Inhale into the Azure. Exhale down to a Measan, Earth Core. Feel the frequencies. And when you're ready, inhale up. And exhale, 12 point. Exhale. Yes. So we would like to thank you for co-creating with us this evening. It was it was a lot of fun.
If you take a moment and in your handout there's a feedback form, if you could go ahead and fill that out and give it either to Pammy or I, and Pammy will compile them and give them to Speaker 3. And it will allow us to know what you liked about it, what you would like to see us offer in the future. And as ever, the Christos in us salutes the Christos in you, and know we are all one. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.